And now we are streaming. Maybe. I don't even
Hello,
know.
everyone. Maybe.
Maybe. We'll
This is
see.
Mark Seifter, maybe,
Oh,
or maybe
I
not.
see us. I see us online.
Okay, well, then in that case, this is Mark Seifter.
It is Mark
I was
Seifter.
just kidding that it was maybe me. It was always actually me.
It was. And now it's just us. It's been so long since it's just been the two of us. Everyone's busy.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things are going on.
There is a lot going
Nonat
on.
has his Sinclair launch and is, I think,
Correct.
sleeping for that.
Yeah, he's like doing a lot of stuff for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked the Knights, but he has a meeting, so he couldn't do it. And then I got lazy after that because I was like, I've been so busy. I was like, okay, I asked 2 people, I'm done.
Look, I get you. Eventually, after you've asked enough people, you run out of spoons.
I usually never run out of spoons, but I'm getting pretty damn close, I tell you. Whoops, I'm moving you up. Your video's a little low. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, because let's see, we're working on. Oh my God, we're working on the adventures. How much did I do yesterday? I released 2 products.
You did so much.
I released 2 products yesterday. Actually one today and one yesterday.
At Paizo, I was constantly tasked at juggling the top of my spoons, but working with you, I can see about. You have the superpower of almost never running out of spoons, but my spoons have usually been better. But recently, due to the deadline we have on everything, I've gone back and I was like, what's this familiar feeling? Oh yes, it's the feeling of juggling all of those spoons.
Yeah, well, it's only the 2 of us.
The good thing is it's temporary and it'll be guaranteed to end in another couple months. So it's kind of like the Gen Con brunch.
You know what? I'm used to it. I mean, at one point, we almost had, at my height of my old company, we had 150 products being released simultaneously at once.
Wow.
Yeah, and obviously this was a much bigger company, but we would be managing hundreds of projects, and
that's 1 product per Pokemon.
That's a lot of products. But having 10 or 11 is pretty. We used to talk about that when I had managers. We'd see how many you can get, and it started at you can manage 15, but you can only actively manage about 7, and then you start losing. But here we actively manage. I'm actively managing probably about 20 products.
For the roll
maybe
for
even
combat
more, 25.
line, or does that include your other
No, for roll for combat, because we got the podcast, and we have the books, and then we have the foundry modules, and then all the freelance illustrators, and then obviously editing everything and doing videos and meetings. So no, it's not that bad though. I mean, for anyone else, I think this would be a nightmare, but I'm kind of used to it.
At Paizo, I would be doing design lead or some amount of oversight, design management over quite a lot of the products. If you consider me trying to manage a schedule that included other people doing design leads on other books, it was a lot, while also doing a bunch of design work. So
yeah, it's a lot of work.
Juggling is tough, and it's a little easier for me than it is for some people, which I'm lucky about.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, when I became full-time, I don't want to call it freelance, but working for myself, it's you have the mentality or you don't, because you have to sit here and work as opposed to watching TV or playing video games, or you just have to have the mentality that you can self-govern and work really hard. And since
even people who go into the office, can have productivity issues when they're juggling that many things. They can get randomized when switching tasks, and some people I know who are incredibly talented, but take 15 to 20 minutes every time they get interrupted by someone for, who ask them a question or they have to change tasks, they have like a cooldown time, and then they only really get back into their speed.
That's actually a well-known thing, is that for writers or programmers, they get into a zone, and it's a big thing. Like when we try to give our programmers 90% of their time programming and try to keep out meetings and even emails and web browsing, because when you get into a zone, you can get more work done in like just a few hours in the zone than you can like in a week. And as soon as you get distracted, you get out of that zone. So this is actually a well-known thing. Like
it's true for a lot of people. It's not true for me, and that helps me.
Yeah, it's not true for me either. I can sort of just zip in and zip out super fast.
And in some cases I'm assisted by zipping in to something else, but only sometimes. And sometimes I do get into a zone, but it's not necessary.
No.
And it doesn't require a certain amount of time. In any case,
yes. So a few things happened. Let's see. Battle Zoo Dragon's Ancestry came out for Foundry yesterday. Yes. And every week I was saying he was coming. I'll tell you what happened. So there's a new version of Foundry coming out, version 9 point whatever, and a version 10. And the guys who are programming it for me work on it, and they're like, hey, we're going to get all this cool new stuff in it, so let's wait. And then they would wait a week, and then they wait a week. And I'm like, guys, let's just release it. We'll come out with version 1.01 with the new cool stuff later, because it just kept getting delayed. So they spent time. We had everyone proof it. And then we got it. We got it out. So over the weekend we did some proofing, and then Battle Zoo Bestiary for 5e came out today for Foundry, which everyone's like, that came out of nowhere. That was just like, I had it actually ready all along, but I had a whole bunch of people test it, and as soon as we finished the first one, I was like, okay, let's package up the next one, and I got that one out. So now we got those out, and now I see. So a few things before we begin. Super chats are always answered first. So if you ever ask a super chat, we will talk to you and answer your question. In addition, do like the stream. If we get 50 likes, we're going to do something silly. That's the new thing. 50 likes, something silly happens.
If we have 50 while it's live during the stream.
While it's like 50 likes during the stream, that's right. And maybe 100 likes after, and then something else. And then I will answer random questions every so often. I did see a question about the book, and I just realized I can't pull the book off my shelf without pulling down my art. Here, let me take down my art.
But the Kickstarter update mentions everything about the books and where they're at.
So that is original art. So I have this thing where I collect original Paizo art, and there's one of the artists, Chris Seaman. He does a lot of Magic cards. He actually did a tremendous amount of Dungeons and Dragons artwork, but he also does a lot of Dungeons. He does a lot of Magic cards. He does a huge number of Magic cards, and he also does a fair amount of Pathfinder stuff. Not as much anymore, but I collect his art, and I have it all over my office. So this is the book. It's done. Okay. Hello, I'm Mr. Book. So people are like, when am I getting my book? Look at that, that's so cool. And the answer is, it just came into port, the ship. So the ship that has the books has to go through customs, and customs can take a day, take a week, take a month, take 2 months. Hopefully it won't take that long. So right now, the biggest problem with the shipping crisis, everyone thinks, oh, shipping crisis. So the shipping crisis's number one problem is there's not enough truck drivers. That's actually where the problems come in. So what happens is the ships come in, and they have nowhere to put the stuff. And then what they actually did in the ports, they're starting to assess massive fees if you keep the material in port for more than, I think, 4 days or something. It's like $100 a day, and then it multiplies. So next day it's 200, next day it's 400. So it gets very expensive very quickly, and that's per container. And those containers are, they hold thousands of those containers, so it gets incredibly expensive fast. So it's a combination of getting it off the ship, going through customs, and then finding a truck that will drive it to where you need it to go. And there's just not enough truck drivers. That's the true problem. There's a couple things. The ships are getting here. Like that first it was the ships, now it's the truck drivers. It's this whole chain of stuff. But anyhow, as soon as it gets to the warehouse, I just spoke to my distributor yesterday. They have almost everything in terms of all the tchotchkes. So like the pins, got like the cool little pins. The pins are done. I'm getting all the minis printed up. There's the minis. Hello, little mini. I have the sticker sheet done. We have the scroll case done. So pretty much everything's done. So if you bought just the Battles Your Bestiary book for Pathfinder, you'll get it. For 5e, it's on the ship, so it'll be here. And then for dragons, I just got I got the proofs. I got the printer proofs. I'll show you what a printer proof looks like. So here's the book, blank. Mark can't see this because where he doesn't see my video, but they give you a blank book.
I can eventually see it when it shows up on the screen. That's true. They
give you a blank book. In the old days, you're supposed to sign it here to approve the book and the size, but they don't do that anymore. They just send this to you to show you what it looks like.
Now you just have to perform complex mathematical proofs during the printer proof stage.
That's right. Yeah, it's just QED. A complex proof. That's right. And then here's the cover. So you get the cover all nice and shiny and new. And then you get, here, you're learning all about print production. Oh, here we go. Here's the signatures pages. So they literally have the signatures for the book. And this is what they look like. And they actually put them together using paper. They're actually just literally laser printed out. And they do a rough, this is called a rough proof. And this doesn't cost anything. But they do these, I think they're like OLED laser proofs that are super accurate, but these are very expensive, so you only get like 8. So you basically get 8 proofs for each page that you want to see. So like I did this page, so any page with like a lot of color on it, I want to make sure the colors look good. This is exactly what it's going to look like when it prints out. So you get one of these, so I get 8 of these, and then you approve these, and then once they get approved, they actually will set up the proof once again. They will send me one more. They send you a lot of proofs. They send you endless proofs, and then they will send you one more proof, and this is the last step. Like, you cannot make a change after this, and if you make a change, then it does. That's when it costs money, Mark. We were talking about that. It's like it costs $100-$200. I'll tell you why it costs money, because what they do is they print the signatures. And then before they bind the signatures, they actually ask you for another proof. So if you find a mistake on one of the signatures, you have to reprint the signature. And that's where the money comes in.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so I guess if there's something that's wrong or different between them, then it's a proof by contradiction.
Yeah. So that's why they only charge you some of the time. Because I actually found we found some very, 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 very tiny mistakes in the 5e book. And it's so minor that it wasn't worth it. And I was like, I literally said, hey, I literally want to change one word. And they're like, $960. And I was like, it's not worth that one word. Will stay in that edition. No problem. Because I'm not spending $960 to change one word. So that was not happening.
$960 is more than I thought. It must have been past the final proof stage.
It was in signature form. And the problem is because we have 2 different versions. Because we have the regular and the special edition, so they had to print it twice. So it was very expensive. So I was like, yep, I guess we're done. Guess that's in there. And someone did ask, the PDFs have revisions that in the printed version of the old version. So the PDFs are actually, the printed versions are actually the same as the most up-to-date PDF. But there actually is a new version of the Dragon Ancestry book that I will probably release today or tomorrow. It's version 2. There's a lot of changes, and I'm going to release that. Those changes are actually already online. They're in the Foundry, and they're in Wanderer's Guide, which is still being worked on, and in Path Builder 2e. So those are in there already. So, but then, yeah, so the quote most up-to-date version will always be the PDF or the Foundry module. Unfortunately, eventually, I mean, I think we kind of ran out of changes. Thank God. So the printed version should be very close to the quote most up to date version. But yep. Anyhow,
Mm-hmm.
so and then Mark even came up with a new thing today that he wanted to put into the book. Something about scales or something. I don't even know what you did.
Yeah, just there's a feat that gives you the entire Sentinel feats armor specialist plus something else that is smaller than that.
Mm-hmm.
And some people who already had all the benefits of the Sentinel feat armor specialist still wanted to take the feat.
Mm-hmm.
So I was considering something else that they could get if they already had that part of it that was like a large percentage of the feat.
Sure.
So it's optional, but
I think we can get it in.
It's useful for people who are in that situation. Obviously, since it's a armor specialization, nobody can possibly have it at level 6, which is the level you get the feat, but champions could get it like one level after that. So
I think we talked way too much about printing 101.
Yes. Let's talk about first party, third party, homebrew, and what that is. What's the difference?
Second party, fourth party, fifth party.
I feel like it's a spectrum, really. And people like to kind of draw boundary lines strictly. And even here, we're going to make definitions, I guess, for ourselves that draw some distinctions. But it's more of a spectrum where you have things that are all a little bit different from each other, and that you'll have to draw the line at exactly what is what.
So, yeah, we have... So the definitions are very simple, and everyone knows what these are now, mostly because of video games more than anything else. Because this doesn't really exist. It's funny. First party, third party, second party doesn't really exist outside of the world. I'm like thinking, does it exist in like any other media other than video games and like anything with games, like game book publishing? That's kind of it. I can't think of anything else that really has that type of party system. It's all about the party. Get it? Party. I just got that. So first party is the publisher. So like in this case, that would be Paizo or WotC. There is the very rarely used second party, which we kind of are in a way. It's second party.
Yeah, it's used in video games only because normally where the first
where
the terminology first came from, the second party would be the customer.
Mm-hmm.
But video games sometimes use it for what Steven's about to say.
Yeah, so for video games or for publishing, the publisher is still the person like Paizo, or in this case Sony. That's probably the most common. So second party publisher for a Sony game would be like I'm trying to remember if God of War is owned by Sony or not, but like you would have a third party, you'd have a company that's not Sony,
but it's licensed. They have a licensing agreement,
and then Sony publishes it. So it's like, okay, Sony, the quote developer was not Sony, but the publisher is Sony. But then you have God of War, which is the publisher is Sony, but the developer is, I forgot who does God of War, but it's a third party. It's another company, and
and that's also sometimes. It's blurring the line.
It's blurring the line.
We're saying it's a spectrum.
Yeah,
right.
It's a spectrum.
Because initially, the way the terminology came up with is the first party is the person who's selling it to you,
right,
and the second party is you, the person who's buying it. A third party is some other person that who is doing their own thing. That was where it started.
Mm-hmm.
But in video games, second party came to mean anybody who was under a license to make games that were exclusively for one of the consoles or another.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what second party came to mean. And we kind of were that until we started doing 5e, because Steven has a license with Paizo.
Yeah.
For like RPG Superstar and some of the other stuff.
Yeah, we're actually second party because we are official partners with Paizo. So,
but we aren't exclusive to one platform, and since the definition is already squidgy in video games, they're usually exclusive. So we could be claimed to be it because of the fact that the definitions are constantly shifting, and it is a spectrum.
Santa Monica is the game company that does God of War.
There we go. Thanks, Bernardo Silva.
Yes. couldn't remember. I'm playing it again right now. God, I love that game. And then third party is probably the one everyone's aware of. That's just someone makes a product for a game, and they have either little or nothing or something. It depends. Like if Mark made a product and published it himself, that would be third party.
Yeah.
If I
did
need,
it while I was working at Paizo, it would too. Paizo people do that as well.
right.
River Ray mentions that when Paizo was licensing the Dungeon and Dragon magazines,
yes,
that it was a second party,
yes,
by the video game definition of second
correct.
Party, and that's true.
That is true. And
That's
then you have
the case.
You have Homebrew, which
honestly,
is
at the moment, Paizo is sort of a third party for the open gaming license created by Wizards of the Coast, right?
Yes,
so like
they
depending
are.
on where you look at things, then Paizo is a third party or the first party for the Pathfinder license.
Well, they're third party for OGL and first party for Pathfinder.
OGL and first party for the Pathfinder compatibility license.
That's correct.
Yep.
And then Homebrew is you sitting around your home saying, I want this XP to be 500 per level. And everyone says, okay. And there you go.
You do it just for yourself.
Yeah.
Or at least that's my definition. People have their own definitions, but my definition matches yours exactly on that, Stephen.
So what was the reason you wanted to do this topic? You saw there was something.
I saw a bunch of people recently that I wasn't expecting that were saying that that they thought that Homebrew and third party are exactly the same and they're synonymous, like, or that Homebrew is like the super category that includes third party content. And I think that's like, obviously everything depends on your definition, right? So if you might think Homebrew includes Paizo content because Paizo is a third party under the OGL, but by most definitions of Homebrew that are based on like what a homebrew is in brewing or just how people generally use it, it would not fill it for Paizo's products or a third party. Any professionally published product would not be considered that because Homebrew, that would be kind of like a microbrew if you're a small company that just made something but they sold it. Whereas a homebrew is just something you're making yourself for yourself.
Oh, wait.
It's not.
What's Infinity then?
What's Infinity? That's interesting. Infinity is probably like some kind of
licensed third party,
some kind of gastropub that sells lots of microbrews.
I think it's licensed third party is what that is.
Or you could say Infinite is like a way to make second party stuff.
Or second party. Actually, it is second party because
it is because you make a license with Paizo, you give money to Paizo, they let it be on Infinite, and you can't necessarily have that exact version for the one that's on Infinite for 5e.
So there is second party. Wow.
And it uses Paizo content. So I think Infinite is second party by the video game second party definition in that case.
Well, this is making my head hurt. So to make your head hurt more, here's where it gets interesting because people are like, what are you? Are you third party? And I'm like, well, let me tell you. We came out with the first book was Battles of Bestiary, and all the writers were freelancers, which is no different what Paizo does. Paizo hires a lot of freelancers to especially make their monsters. I created monsters for Paizo and that were published, no different than me hiring freelancers, in this case through contests, to get to find people to write monsters. Then we had Patrick Rennie go through the monsters and officially edit them using the same criteria that Paizo uses. So there's no difference. If he was working for Paizo or working for me and he was making a monster, in theory, there's no difference. And we have Mark Seifter writing the rules for monster parts using all of his knowledge of the rules for Pathfinder, since he helped create them, and use all the same mechanics and methodologies in math. So there would be no problem having this inside of a Paizo product. Then all the artists I used, about 85% of them worked on Paizo products in the past. So these were, quote, Paizo artists. Not all of them, a few were new, but most of them had experience working on Paizo products. And then finally, I did do the layout, but the layout is very close to the Paizo brand in the sense that you can't copy it exactly, and we do use different fonts, but I do keep the same layout. Like for the monsters, I kept the same layout in that there was a sidebar, and then there was the monster stat block, and then having the lore on top, and then the monster on the bottom as opposed to the other way around. Even little things like the one thing I didn't include, like they have icons. Patrick and I decided not to include icons for the monsters, so they're slightly different. But to the layperson, if they opened up our book and they opened up a Paizo book and put them side by side, they would not be able to tell the difference.
I would say the main difference between the two of them, if we assume that the monsters were treated less like a bestiary and more like AP back matter monsters,
yeah, they're closer.
all of which were not flagged as summonable and not flagged as being part of a large monster family that was likely to be reprinted in a bestiary or something like that, so that they didn't get a separate design pass after the developer, which in this case would be Patrick, that they would have gone through essentially the same early stage process as any AP monsters that Patrick worked on. The main difference is instead of the Paizo editing team in terms of some of the things, the formatting and the exact word choice, that Roll for Combat had a different editor and then did a lot of fan feedback before the printing and got a lot of errata fixed in that way. So it has a slightly different process on some of the very specific wording things. But other than that, it would have gone through the exact same process to get you AP monsters in the early stage. And you would have had a different layout person, like you said, Stephen.
But the layout is purposely, like some people go very different with the layout. I could do a whole topic on this, but you don't want to do that because there's a lot of knowledge built into having a structured layout and design and expectations where things are. So you always want to keep the layouts close to similar because they already are expecting things in a certain way. So why reteach them how a book works? So
so I would say this, which is even a more interesting thing when I'm talking about a spectrum. There's a spectrum within Paizo of how products are put together, and that is different for different lines of products. And I would go so far as to say that other than the fact that there's some monsters that maybe are technically summonable in Battle Zoo Bestiary that were not flagged for a review by a designer because Battle Zoo Bestiary didn't have that. That other than that, the design and development of those monsters in Battle Zoo Bestiary that were developed by Patrick is probably more similar to an AP back matter monsters than an AP back matter monster for Paizo is to a bestiary in the process, because of the fact that a bestiary has a different process and set of people that than an AP does. A bestiary has two designers, and an AP back matter monster has one developer and maybe a designer if it's flagged for a designer. So and the developer is literally the same person who did Battle Zoo Bestiary for a bunch of APs, such as Quest for Frozen Flame, to name a recent one, or Outlaws of Alkenstar, to name the one that's currently coming out. So in that way, sort of the spectrum of things, like Battle Zoo Bestiary's development process is more similar to APs than APs are to bestiaries. Now, that being said, if you're not talking about development and design, like the rollsy, crunchy part of them, and you're more talking about some of the language choices, I mean, Paizo's editing team is top notch, and they have a giant style guide of things like language choices, or like where to alphabetize and where to not alphabetize and things like that. And Battle Zoo is not going to have exactly the same style guide.
Yeah, we actually use the same alphabetized rules, but I do final editing, and even for the latest adventure, I mean, I was just editing Patrick's and now Ron's. Like, they use specific words a lot, and I have been changing those words. And I know it's funny because those would be words you see in Adventure Path, but ours is a little different. I mean, we're talking about like using, instead of a while, we'll use there, or like little words like that, small details that no one would ever notice, but it's just it's a subtle shift in tone that I'm just adhering to. But we also use the same printer as Paizo.
That's
So,
true. Except
for our
for that,
books,
there is something that makes
the
Battlezoop products a lot different, which is that
the
you
paper,
have paid for the most expensive and highest quality thing at that
the
same
paper,
printer,
yeah, the
and
paper.
Paizo is a few steps down, right?
Yeah, they have 60-pound weight, which is the lowest weight you can do with still two color sided whatever printing color on
Mm-hmm.
two sides and not have it bleed through. There's nothing wrong with the paper, trust me. There's a lot of reasons why you do it. They print much higher volumes. There's a weight issue, size issue, blah blah blah. I won't get into it, but we're with us, since we're doing less of them, I'm trying to do more of a premium product. And we did 70-pound and 80-pound, so we're doing 80-pound super gloss. Like, it's a very very high stock. It's actually using recyclable materials on top of that, so it's
So does it go up by 10 each time? So is it
yeah.
two ticks up?
It always it always goes up by 10. Well, after 80, it actually, I don't think there's 90. It goes up to like 110, 120. There, it gets a little
Wow,
weird
that's
because
a huge amount.
no one goes to 90. There's no such thing. There might be, but I've never seen it. 80 is where it stops. After you got to get to card stock. Like
Okay,
that's
so it's
card
two
stock.
ticks up. 'Cause
Yeah.
I know you had told me that it was the most, but I didn't know how many ticks up
80
it was.
pound versus 80 pound. I mean, that's probably what you print on. If you get really good paper, if you get really good laser paper, like you're printing like your photos on or something, it's sometimes 80 pounds. So it's pretty standard, and you'll know. It's one of these things, like, we did it on purpose because it's like, I don't know if anyone would notice. It's funny because it's like no one will notice. I was talking to people. I'm like, yeah, but I notice. I wanted the paper to feel like you'd feel it, like it's actually significantly thicker than the paper from Paizo book, and that's the thing. It's like it's actually really thick, and for whatever it's worth, like the ink it's just incredible. Like I actually do printing. Before I did all this, actually I used to do printing way back when, and some paper takes ink better, and this like takes, I mean, you can't see it, but the ink is, there's like a picture, it's gorgeous. It's really popping, because I felt like if you're gonna buy the book, I'm gonna make it worth your while. Like, I want to make sure that you get the book and that the book is significantly worth the extra cost. Trust me, I'm someone who uses PDFs. Like, I am all digital. I run all my games digitally, but I still like to have the books. And then we even put little fun things like little plates in there that will not in the PDF, so you get that. Anyhow, back to the original thing, because I'm doing too much selling here.
One of the people in chat, Aleph, was saying one cool thing about third party is that you can do a more unusual or risky product rather than Paizo, which is kind of forced to be cautious because it's the main line and it's the heartblood of the company. Like, we could do dungeons, and that's not something that Paizo would have.
And we could do it in one day.
Put out.
Which is something I don't think.
That's another thing too.
Yeah, so, our speed is significantly
on this
faster.
I guess you have to decide where you're going to draw a line. A lot of people like to. I mean, you could just not draw a line, but a lot of people like to draw a line because it makes it easier to feel like you have a clear-cut distinction of what you're going to do. Like, there's some people, and like I said, within Paizo, the different products have different processes. Some people are just like only the rulebook line, or rulebook and Lost Omens, or anything from Paizo, or anything from Paizo and Roll for Combat, or anything from Paizo or third party. I mean, I think that probably the best case scenario for you to have a fun game is to say, I will vet anything from Paizo or third party, because third party and Paizo alike can put out things that will cause problems in your group, and will occasionally do so. So, but that's obviously harder than just saying, I will allow sight unseen anything that fits criterion X, because you don't have to vet it. But
ignore my dog
having
barking.
your group get together and collectively vet things, I think helps kind of build a shared understanding in the group of what you want in the game, and what you want the NPCs and the PCs to be using or getting up to in terms of gameplay and narrative.
So back to the question. So if we're using the same process, the same people from Paizo, same artists, same layout, same printer, Everything's more the same. We're
Are you
licensed.
ship of Theseusing here?
What's
Is
that?
what you're getting at? Are you
What?
getting at a ship of Theseus argument?
Yes, it
Or
is the
actually,
ship of Theseus
it's sort of a
argument.
reverse ship of
It's a
Theseus,
reverse ship of
though.
Theseus, of
Because ship
course.
of Theseus, it's still called the ship of Theseus, but everything is switched out.
Well, you're a ship of Theseus. Your body renews itself every 7 years. Every cell in
Sure.
your body.
I guess the ship of Theseus question, if you wanted to do it completely, would be if all the original people who were making certain Paizo products left Paizo and like joined some other company.
Like you?
Then, but then Paizo hired one new person each time because it
Right.
didn't all happen all at the same time.
But that's true too, because new people came in and go.
Then which one is the ship of Theseus?
Right. Well, the point is that are we really third party? And we're licensed partners, which makes it that they trust us enough to with their product, because you actually have to be approved for that. And so it's like we've done everything except have Paizo publish the book. And
I would say that the main difference is our editing process is different. I'm not going to say that
True.
that what we're doing is worse, because in some ways having the ability to get all of the fan feedback gives you like hundreds of people looking at it and get that in before the print book. That's something Paizo doesn't even have, but it is different. Everything else is pretty much the same process.
So that's where it gets weird, because people are like, oh, it's not third party, or it is third party. So,
and it technically obviously isn't first party because of the strict definition that if it's not published by Paizo, it's not first party. But the real question is like whether that distinction is exactly what you really like. Is it a distinction or a spectrum? If it is and because there's a spectrum within third party, right? There are some products that are put out by people who are like from Paizo. There are some products that are put out by people who never had anything to do with Paizo, but they still have like a solid process with multiple development passes, editing passes, and playtesting. And there are some that are like closer to the homebrew side, right? That are just like a random person who was homebrewing and took their homebrew notes and put it into a document and then like uploaded it on Infinite or somewhere else, right? That's still a third-party product, but since it's a spectrum, that is closer to the homebrew side of the spectrum, whereas something like what we're doing, where we use almost the same processes, closer to the other side. So the question also becomes like whether these labels are the most worthwhile labels to use to make a distinction. And the answer is, I mean, they're not perfect, but they are. It does make it easier for people to figure out what's going on, I guess, than having no labels. That's why we come up with labels and terms for things, is to help us in decision making, to make faster decisions than we would have to do if we didn't have words or names for things. But it's the Rumpelstiltskin principle. Once you have a name for something, it gives you power over it.
Isn't that the dragon principle? You get the name of the dragon. But the thing is that with third party, even it gets funny, because if you get a reputation for putting out good products, then you become first party. Because like Paizo was third party until now they're first party, because they were third party
they just put out their own license. Right. I mean, if we put out a Roll for Combat license,
we could
license the ability to use Alucard and some of the other things that are currently not allowed by the OGL, then we would be the first party in that agreement.
More typos. Cheese of ages. We have no typos. What are you talking about? No typos and being more prone to formatting problems. Yeah, there actually are a number of formatting is tough, because you need an eagle eye for formatting.
Formatting is tricky also, because if it's a very subtle formatting issue, then even Paizo's multiple
it'll go right by.
Might miss it, but are having hundreds of people look at it might catch it, which is but for a typo, Paizo having like 4 editors read through it is going to catch it way more likely than
we
are to catch it with our editing pass it initially, but then fans might find it before the actual printed book.
We actually have something in the process that not even you're aware of, Mark.
Oh, well, there you go then. Cheese of Ages / me.
Well, I'll tell you why.
The unaware.
I'll tell you why we also have now less typos. So there are
fewer typos. That's why we need an editor.
Fewer. I got to give you one. Fewer typos because there's a lot of very good automated programs for grammar checking, and these aren't
about that. You told me that several times,
and they're very good. There's a couple out now that use AI learning, and they will find, because very often your brain will put in words and you'll just read and put in an of, like say he went over the mountain, and then you'll put in the, but it actually reads he went over mountain, and no one will catch it. Like nobody will catch it. I go through 50 people. I've seen this a million times. Software catches it. Software always catches it. And that has been a big help. So part of the editing process for us is I do put it through actually 2 automated AIs. I put all the text through it just for a double check, and it finds things. It definitely finds stuff, mostly inconsistencies with tone or tense. It's very good with that. It's also very good with commas, and it's very good at finding missing words in phrases. That's actually the best thing it's good at. So that's something else that's in our process, and it works really well, and it's easy to do.
London Matthews makes a good point of like comic readers who might. London Matthews started out just reading Marvel, and a friend would say, "Check out this DC title," and they'd be like, "Let's draw the line at Marvel," but then. After following more comics, they realized there are certain creators that you would want to check out, regardless of where they were.
Yeah, of course,
doing their comic. So people sticking with first party make a nice clean line, but you miss out on great stuff if you just want to stay within a single brand. And that's true.
I'm talking to say I only read indie prints of comics. I hated DC, and actually I hated DC. I like Marvel, but I only read like the Badger and Mage and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when it first came out, and it was super gory and like all those. I read all those third-party comics, and no one, some people know about now. But yeah, I was not into the mainstream. But that's like anything. It's like, think about if you have a band and you have like the lead singer goes and does a solo album. Do people follow them? So Mark, you're the guy who left the band. You left Paizo to form. Not a new group. You joined a new.
What does that make you like Yoko or something?
Yeah, I'm Yoko. No, it's like Wings. Let's be more like this is Wings from.
Okay. Look, I have used up my entire knowledge of post-classical music to.
There you go. That was it. You're done.
Comment.
Yeah. So that's Paul McCartney. That was his new band after he left. Was Wings.
There you go. So. Let's see. You mentioned in the preview that we were going to talk about how accepted each of these points in the spectrums are in the worlds of D&D versus Pathfinder.
Well, you know what? Before that, let's talk about a new ancestry. Hey,
let's do that. I'd much rather do that before we go to that.
Yeah. Who's this? Hardigan? What about these? These guys look nasty and mean and tough. Grr. And you just edited them and finished it up. Written by Ron Lundeen himself, edited by Mark Seifter. And these are the Ram-like fighting class Klingon Jem'Hadar of the Indigo Isle world. They're mean and nasty.
So normally when you use edited synonymously with other things, I just kind of don't say anything. But since we're talking specifically about Battleju's process here,
okay, sure.
I will say that I did not perform an editing pass on it, although
what did you do?
A developmental pass with an Ion design. I do try to catch editing errors during that, right?
Got it.
So does any designer at Paizo.
I still haven't gotten used to the jargon of designer, developer. We use
weird jargon, and I know you weren't in the publishing industry like the normal publishing industry, not using the weird jargon.
No, we didn't use it. Everything was editing.
So a developmental pass is like, it is technically, by publishing even the design pass where we redesign things, are considered to be a type of editing by publishing, but at Paizo, it's pretty distinctive because we don't have the title editor. So it's a little confusing. And you're not technically wrong that publishing considers it to be a type of editing, but I wanted just to make clear to our viewers of this particular stream that they're like, wait, Mark did it editing, but you said you didn't have.
Oh my
the
God,
editors from
Mark is
Paizo.
being very specific. Anyhow, Mark, since you did a design pass and development
Yes.
pass, tell us
Yes.
more about this new ancestry.
Yeah, so I really like Hardrigans because they are an interesting. They like first I was like, oh, are these just like ram people? That's not necessarily that interesting, but they are definitely, like you said, the Klingon / Jem'Hadar ram.
Yes.
So to Hardrigans, what's most important is establishing a pecking order based on strengths. And so they create these social groups called columns where you always know who's the strongest in the group. And by virtue of filling in your place in that group, then you make sure that you have the protection of the one who are above you in that group. Because otherwise, Hardrigans believe that you kind of just like take the best stuff for yourself if you're stronger. That doesn't mean that like Hardrigans just take everything from everyone who's weaker than them until they have nothing left and they starve, but they, you give the best to the strongest. It's kind of a warrior ideal. And so that's kind of what their deal is, although not all Hardrigans like that. There's some subgroups of Hardrigans who want to who feel like that hierarchy is bad and they kind of want to break things up and that nobody should serve anybody else. There are others that lean into it but are more like performative, so they'll do like some kind of ridiculous deed to show that they're the best. There's others who want to kind of establish like a utopian society that is supposedly based on an ancient Hardrigan society, and they have issues because some of them want that society to like not have the kind of fighting for dominance, but some of them want to use the name of that ancient society to establish their own dominance. So there's all sorts of interesting groups within Hardrigans. You can get feats and abilities based on like intimidating, or a lot of it's based on like physicality or intimidating. There's a fun one where when you have the stupefied condition applied on you, you wind up doing more damage, which is interesting. It's like, well, you still probably don't want to have a penalty on will saves, but so you're not going to do it on purpose. But if it does happen to you, then your saving grace is you're going to do more damage.
So they're saying how many fingers. So that's something I actually have to go through all the art and fix. But yes, the lady in the middle. So Hardrigan are such a battle culture. If you see anyone that has 4 fingers, that just means they lost them in battle. They have 5 fingers, just, they fight a lot and things happen. So there you go.
Also, the sword on the left is a advanced Hardrigan weapon. That's like the Hardrigan Jagblade or something like that.
Jagblade. That's a brand new class of weapons that only they can use. And that thing is
anybody
nasty.
can, but
anyone can use them as long as, I'll put it this way, if you're carrying that weapon around and a Hardrigan looks at you, you better be ready to defend yourself and prove that you deserve to wield that blade. I'll tell you that much, though.
Also, since it's an advanced weapon, it's gonna, if you're not like a fighter or something, it's gonna be difficult to use it well if you're not Hardrigan.
So one thing, by the way, with the look, because I do all art design. So I purposely gave them a punk aesthetic because you don't really see this in fantasy. In fact, it's in it once in a while. So they very much have this punk vibe. Lots of sharp points, lots of belts, lots of wraps on them. So it's sort of a combination.
They have a lot of piercings. They even have
piercings.
They have a feat about that. They'll do horn modifications where they make their horns even spikier than normal. They're pretty interesting types of people. Yeah, they've got that hair you can see over their body, and they've got big horns.
Yep, and they stand about 7 feet tall, so they're gigantic, which is
they're
nice.
Very, very tall. They weigh about 300 pounds, And female Hardragons tend to be slightly leaner and somewhat thinner hair, but that's the only main difference. So it's hard to tell them apart. I guess the one in that art is wearing a very
it's up to them. They can hide it or not.
Wearing a very shaping outfit that's doing something else with it. But some ancestries have issues telling them apart.
But the main thing is like all the ancestries are trying to do was give them very different feels. And one of my favorite, this came a little bit from World of Warcraft because I loved playing the Tauren, and they are similar in some ways because I do like Taurens were these huge, gigantic cow people, but they actually were a little more gentle. They were a little bit warlike, but they were a little gentle. These I do like. I do love Star Trek. I do love Klingons and the whole concept of honor and the whole system. So we tried to sort of mix the two, sort of put a little bit of a warrior culture, a little bit of Klingon or Jem'Hadar, and even samurai culture into them, and also just making them like medium-sized but gigantic. Like, you know, these are the biggest. Probably, I can't think of an ancestry really as tall as them. I mean, they're probably the tallest ancestry that I can think of.
They're pretty tall for medium, but because of their low center of gravity and the way that they're often, as you can see in the picture, kind of like bent over.
They're like linebackers.
It's hard to tell how tall they would be if they like stood straight up.
Yeah,
I guess except for the one in the middle who is standing straight up.
Yeah, she's standing straight up, and the other two are always like hunched over. And they all look like they're all strong. I think that's what their free. This strength is one of their free traits. So if you want to play a kick-ass, cool ancestry, you will be able to in just a few short. I won't say weeks, months. Few short months. And now we're back. We're back to the normally scheduled program. But again, and if you want to see, just go to battlezoo.com. And all these ancestries are part of Jewel the Indigo Isle. So if you get Jewel the Indigo Isle, you get these ancestries. I think the ancestries alone are going to be like 70 pages or 60 to 70 pages of that, at least 60.
I think it'll be closer to
well, don't forget the art.
55 because of the fact that
two of them are heritages,
and those are a lot shorter.
True,
since they,
but we do have art, and I'm going to put a lot of art in.
Right. So it maybe 55 to 60.
Yeah.
For the ancestries alone. If they were all ancestries, it would have been 70 because we do.
True.
We do extra long ancestries at Roll for Combat because we believe you want to learn more about their society and have enough feats to fill out the level 17 feats, have some choices, even if that don't have prerequisites at a lot of the feat levels.
So what is the height limit of medium? Ironically, there's not really a height limit.
There's not an exact limit.
Yeah, it's more the width. It's
you have to decide at what point it takes up 4 squares and is like depicted by a mini that's twice as big as a person.
Because like a horse is large, but they're not very tall, and they don't have reach or anything. So,
but they're kind of long. And there are a bunch of large creatures that don't have reach or only have reach on some of their unarmed attacks.
Yeah, and then there's also medium-sized that have reach, like snakes and stuff that can like strike.
If you were 8 feet tall, it would kind of be awkward because that's like clearly much bigger than usual for medium, but it's pretty. If you were 8 feet tall and slender, like I don't know, like Robert Wadlow, but just very slightly taller because he was less than 8 feet tall, then it would be awkward for size category because you'd be kind of like, that's not really medium, but for large, you would be way smaller than in total mass than a lot of the other large creatures. So, size categories in games, just like first party, third party in Homebrew is a spectrum. But we just make these labels and decide this is exactly what size it is. And not everything fits in it really cleanly or squarely.
So we have 21 likes. We need more likes.
Alice says, what? We do extra long ancestries.
No,
they didn't know that. Looks at Dragon Ancestry.
I didn't know that. You ain't seen nothing yet. You think that's long? Maybe you just wait, buddy.
Wait, I don't think we're gonna do an ancestry that's longer than Dragons.
We are gonna do
if so,
an
then
ancestry.
that's more of a surprise to me than the fact
we
that
are
you use
doing
programs.
Human ancestry. Redo it. We're gonna redo it, but we're gonna do it right. So it's gonna be like 200 pages on humans alone.
200 pages of humans.
Humans.
I don't like, there are a lot of things you've asked me that are very challenging, and I'm like, that is challenging and interesting challenge. I'm up to that. I think I can do it, but I don't think I can do 200 pages on humans, just because I don't think there's that much. I don't think there's that much content unless you want to get into things that are probably weirdly uncomfortable to talk about
200
in a role-playing
pages
book.
on bacterium.
That's probably easier to do
Probably is.
than 200 pages
200
on humans
pages on
that
birds.
aren't uncomfortable
Just
in an RPG
birds.
product,
Just
because
birds.
you could make the bacterium all different diseases.
Yes. So wouldn't that be good? You'd be a germ. You're like, you have adventures inside people's bodies, like
Battle Zoo ancestry germs.
germ warfare. I don't
We'll
think that
do
would sell very
Osmosis
well.
Jones / cells at work / any of those kind of things.
So we're getting so this is the interesting part, and we didn't even get to it till almost an hour in. So there seems to be this. It's funny. There's very few third-party publishers for Paizo products for Pathfinder. In fact, we're one of the only ones. Now Infinity's out. There's more. Before that, there was.
But we already said Infinite is kind of
Yeah.
second party, because
Yeah.
you have a license with Paizo, and they
And in
put
fact,
it out there.
there's very few. I won't go into the reasons why. There's basically because people
We
feel
actually did. We already have an episode where we talked
did.
about.
We went
a
into
little bit
why.
about why there
Yeah.
were more or fewer.
Yeah, there's fewer because people. It's a lot of work to do books for both. It's actually a ton. I mean, it's twice as much work, and a lot of people feel that if they're going to put all that work in, they just do 5e. So everyone does 5e, and now 5e has the exact opposite issue because 5e is nothing but C's and C's and C's of third party. They seem to be very accepted to the point that the few 5e games I've ever played, they just literally sit down and say which products they're using, because WotC has decided to put out very few rules that expand the concept of their races and their classes and the world. Instead, they put out adventure paths. And they really have not grown the world. I mean, it's been like 8 or 9 years, and in that amount of time, Paizo's probably lapped them several times in the 2.5, 3 years that Pathfinder Second Edition has been around. And that's just a different style. It's just a different methodologies that
And we talked about, like, there were a lot of reasons why more people made third-party products, one of which is that it sold more in 5e.
Oh, yeah.
But
definitely.
I think that there's only a few reasons why people accept third-party products more, or at least a few strong reasons that dominate out over. I think the number one is related to what you just said, Stephen. Because of the fact that Paizo puts out a lot of products, it's easy even for a group that wants a lot of material to be at the point where I talked about people wanting to draw a line because it just makes it simpler to make decisions and to understand things, and you don't have to spend a lot of time researching. And it's easier to draw the line, Paizo only, or even just like Paizo rulebook line is more than what 5e puts
it's more
out.
than enough.
And then you're done. Whereas with 5e, if you're someone who feels that the amount of books that came out in 5e are not enough, then you're constantly feeling this isn't enough. This isn't enough. What can I do? How can I change my rule or the line that I'm drawing so that I will have enough? And then your only answer is, well, what about third party? And since people rarely draw a line that is like, well, for first or third party or second party or whatever, bring it to me and I'll look at it, which is probably the best in terms of like game integrity, but is absolutely much more difficult than just saying I'll let anything like this. But because of that, once they've opened the door on third party in 5e because they felt there's not enough content without it, then that door is open. And once lots of groups have done that, then it becomes more accepted, right? I think that's sort of the number one reason probably that it's more accepted in 5e. And maybe the number two reason is a lot of things are listed as optional in 5e, or like kind of left as an exercise for the reader or the GM or the players to fill in themselves. And so it kind of leaves a gap that if a third party fills it in, then people would be like, oh, that fills in that thing that we would have had to come up with. Let's check it out. Whereas Pathfinder Second Edition leaves fewer gaps, which essentially comes down to the same thing. both of those two components are kind of two halves of one coin.
But it is fascinating because now I can see why people might be hesitant to use. It's really is fascinating because if you think about it, it's like developing for Pathfinder second edition, I feel is much easier than 5e, because 5e hides all their numbers and all their rules. So it's very easy to develop for 5e, but I don't know if it's easy to develop something balanced. It's very easy. It's like the rules are just do whatever you want. So anything you make is good, and people do. And I've seen rules all over the place for 5e, and none of it's wrong.
Well, I think one thing that makes it easier to develop something that is for some, I mean, it depends on your definition of the word balance, but
Right.
that is for some intents and purposes balance for 5e is that it's a larger target.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the spells in 5e, when I did like a very deep dive of looking at all of the spells in the 5e player's handbook when I was looking at the spells imbued properties for Battles of Bestiary and 5e, and some of the spells just don't follow the design rules for spells, while others do follow. A lot of the other ones do follow them, and others are just like, no, this is just better than all of the other ones at its level. And when asked that the reason was, well, you know, it's a kind of iconic spell, so we just wanted it to be better than the other spells like Fireball. So given that you have a target that's wide enough that they're just things even in the basic rules that are just on purpose better or worse than the guidelines of the system, it's easier to design for it and hit within that boundary. Whereas in Pathfinder second edition, there generally would not be a case where things were designed to be intentionally better or worse than the other options in their category because they were iconic or because they were non-iconic. And so therefore it is a little harder to hit them because of the fact that it's a smaller target to hit, but it's easier, like you said, because there's more guidance.
So one thing I will say is that when it comes to 5e is that I think they just went for the rule of cool at all times. Basically, they just went for rule of cool. Everything should be fun and cool, and you know, numbers be damned. You know, numbers, whatever. You know,
I think they had a system that they were looking at for numbers, and I've seen it like in the Dungeon Master Guide. There is guidance, and it shows, but not everything. In fact, for monsters, especially, a lot of things don't follow that system.
They don't follow their own
system.
system.
So they add a lot of secret sauce or just mixing things up and changing things around. But I do feel that there is a fundamental
it's there,
mathematical framework.
But they themselves don't even always do it. They're just like, we'll just do whatever. But you have Pathfinder, who gives you such diligent, well thought out, structured rules to the point that, well, we wrote a system where you can build monsters online, and if you can automate it, you know, if the system is that well designed and I can automate the building of monsters, then that tells you something. That actually is proof that there's true math and structure behind the system, and we are able to do that. You know, I mean, RPG Superstar lets you do that, but there's, you know, but I could also see it goes the other way, is that because everything's so regimented, if you wanted to do something like a chase, it's like, okay, well, here's the chase rules. You know what? Sometimes when I do a chase, I just sort of, even I like say, kind of throw those rules out, or I just go by them lightly. You know, you can't codify everything. And that's one of the things that Pathfinder sometimes try to do. They try to codify.
Systems are only a sometimes snack. Therefore, when you want it to take a certain amount of time at the table, and you want it to be a focus because it's important to the story. Like you're doing a giant chase scene, and that's the scene in the movie that is big scene. But as opposed to like, oh, a thief is running away from the PCs in combat, and it's like, okay, you probably don't want to pull out the entire chase rules for that.
Right.
Maybe you could roll like one check to see if they get away or not.
But but for coming out with third party material, it is a strange dichotomy that people, at least for Pathfinder second edition, I mean, I think they're starting to loosen up, is that, you know, because there's so much content for Paizo that they feel like, well, why do I need to use this special character class or do the special thing, that Paizo has something close to it, and I'd rather use that because, quote, it's official. And because they come out with so much product, I feel like if Paizo did the same route that WotC did and just come out with adventures and that's it, and well, that was it really. There would be a huge third-party market, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't materialized in the last few years, which is also why that I purposely am using people that they will trust. So that you're getting balanced, very well thought out systems. We do a lot of public testing. That's something that we do significantly, is that we give it out to public testers. Dragon Book had something like 60 people give us a lot of feedback. Mark read through every single one of them, and we changed the book based on public opinions and public feedback. So we go through and make sure that this is something that we feel that will fit perfectly in the world of Paizo. And
there's a super chat for you, Stephen, from Dylan. And it may be true that other people need this information too. How does Dylan get their Foundry Dragon code if they purchase directly through BackerKit?
Yeah. So
is there an email address they should contact?
Yeah, just if you post either on the Discord or on the chat area, you log into BackerKit, and then under digital products, they'll list the code. If not, I'll look at it right away and I will send you a code. So as soon as, because it's hard to find, it's just the way BackerKit works. The good news is once you have the code, you enter it and you're done forever. So if you can't find it, I'll send it to you. And you enter the code and you have the product unlocked forever. But you could just go to the Discord and do it there, or just write me at I think anything at Roll for Combat will come to me. Just Steven at rollforcombat.com. Anything at rollforcombat.com will do it.
Everything. Can you actually type anything at rollforcombat?
Oh, I think so. I think some of them might bounce.
Bounces the entire domain.
Almost everything comes to me right now.
Okay.
Rob.
Well, we have the second super chat from Rob Tibke. When making magical item with unique properties, how do you decide what character level it is while keeping it balanced? So it really depends in your question on who's making magical item with unique properties, because if you're just making it for your home group, it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't matter that much. It's a unique item. There's only one. It's not like your whole party is going to buy like 4 of this item. So, and you can try to, if it winds up being ridiculously broken for its level, eventually over time, it probably, unless you made something that's really evergreen or somehow scales up, it probably won't be as bad, and you can compensate for it. If you're publishing it, then you need to worry about it a little more. And so the rules for building items give you some idea. Like you could try to benchmark it against, what I do is I am a lot more, I feel very solid about spells and what level a spell should be compared to items. And you would too if all you need to do is like design most of the spells for an edition, and then you'll feel very solid with spells. So what I do is I try to compare it to a spell and see, oh, this is close to a 4th level spell and is once per day, then it's probably like a 9th level item. Mm-hmm. And because a wand of a 4th level spell is a 9th level item. That may not work for you because that first step of designing most of the spells in an edition is hard to accomplish. But also, if you know spells better than items, it can work. Otherwise, you just kind of have to get a feel, try to compare it to spells, try to compare it to other items. And you said a unique property. So if it's way too different from everything else, and it's like, this isn't even like a spell because it does something really weird, you can always consider just kind of picking a level or making it whatever level your group is, or maybe pick the level first and then try to make an ability that seems balanced.
Yeah, I mean, items are tough. As soon as I saw that question, I was like, oh boy, because there is no secret sauce for an item. The closest secret sauce is if your item does something similar to either another item or ability or magic item or spell, then that is what you should compare it against and balance it at that level, like Mark said. The other thing is items are cool because you can make different versions of the items. You can make a greater or a lesser. So if you feel like, oh, I want to make this item, but then you look at it and it's level 9 and your character's level 5, you're like, damn it. Then just make the lesser version. Make one that does less, and now you have a lesser version, and then you can make the regular one, then a greater one. So there's a lot of room in there. So don't feel like, because I actually don't like giving people items that are too powerful, because it can vary, because the math is so tight in Pathfinder. It is possible to, I wouldn't say break the game, but you can make things a little unbalanced.
You could at least make one character feel like they're outperforming everybody else if you give them something that's too ridiculous.
Yeah, that's why a lot of that's why
wands more is that just that one person will feel better, because if everybody had something that was that good, you could just
and you'll notice
thing would be a little easier.
Most items can only be used like once a day, or
maybe once an hour.
Yeah, or once an hour. Like that's on
if
purpose.
If your thing is constant and does something pretty significant, you may just want to not do that. Or just be careful, or just know that you have warning signs on it. Maybe even tell the player, hey, yeah, this like constantly gives a really high damage bonus, and I think it's gonna work, but I'm not really sure. So I'm reserving the right to change it so it maybe is a once a day activation if it winds up being too much.
Yeah, that's pretty much, if you notice, most items, they, even the really good ones, especially the good ones, like, oh, this is great, I can do it once per day. And it literally says in the rules, like if it's a wand, I've seen this, like, oh, if you overcharge the wand, you don't get the really cool thing more than once. Like you only get the cool thing once.
Oh no, overcharged wands you get more than once, but
not true. Everlasting life.
About wands.
Nope. Everlasting life. What's the one that it heals you? It casts heal at a level. It doesn't
work on the overcharge?
No,
really?
It says it does not work on the overcharge.
Wand of overflowing life?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
I got Mark. Oh,
I didn't know that, and I didn't
I'm
pass
done.
On the wand.
Here we go.
I
congratulate myself. I'm gonna pat myself on the back here.
Wait, I don't even see it. I just looked it up.
Look it up. Because you get the regular spell, and then you get the next round a spell that heals you, but you only get that once, not when you overcharge it.
It doesn't say that you don't get it when you overcharge. It just says you can't gain the benefit more than once
per
at
day.
The same time, even if you cast multiple heal spells in the same
Isn't that,
turn.
well, couldn't you read that it wouldn't happen more than, it says once though. It's a little vague then.
I think that the point of it is that you're not supposed to be able to like triple cast it like people were trying to do with the wand of manifold missiles, where they would just like constantly cast one action magic missiles from wand of manifold missiles and then try to get a huge number of magic missiles.
How? You can only cast it twice a game. I don't know.
Well, they were multi-holding wands of
I
missiles.
see.
And
okay.
then since it automatically happens for a minute.
Oh, I read it that you couldn't benefit. I can see it's a little vague, but I can see.
I think it was written to prevent people from doing some kind of thing where it just kept burst healing them like
okay.
a bunch of times.
Well, anyhow, Oily Right, 5 pounds. I see a huge influx of 5e players into 2e lately. Do you think their 5e mindset of being into third-party publishing and homebrew could boost third-party activity in 2e? Yes.
What do you think, Stephen?
Yes. That's it. I'm done. Yes. No. Okay. Yes. Definitely. Of course.
I think it could, because once you've made that decision, like for people drawing a line and deciding what heuristics they're going to use to make their decision making faster is really what it comes down to. And once someone has already made the decision, hey, my heuristic includes that I look at third party. Now they may change their mind in Pathfinder 2nd edition temporarily or permanently, but temporarily like, oh, well, there's a new game. I still have to get all the content for that. And I'm joining in 3 years late and there's a huge backlog. So that could delay them still. But I think it would make them more likely in the long run to take a look at third party content.
Definitely.
I think that's part of the third party kind of slow birth of the third party in Pathfinder 2nd edition, because you may have seen it getting stronger in the past few years. And when you compare to Pathfinder 1st edition, third party was very strong at launch. Whereas in 5e and in 2nd edition, it took a little while before it became stronger. Mm-hmm. And that was mainly because Pathfinder 1st edition was very similar to 3.5. A lot of third parties already knew 3.5 at that point in time. and it was a lot of people who were still playing 3.5 and didn't move to 4E were people who were like also more likely to look into third parties and be doing things like that. So it was a good it was sort of a conglomeration of factors that led to like hitting the ground running with third party in PF1. Whereas with PF2, the people who were more likely to use third parties were also more likely to be holdouts in PF1 for a while and to not move to PF2, possibly because, well, they had a lot of content in third parties that wasn't going to be in PF2. Whereas the 5e crowd switching over, I think, is where we're going to see third parties grow more in PF2.
Yeah, I mean, the simple answer is if you're comfortable with third party stuff, then why wouldn't you? I mean, this is, you know, and Paizo wants third party to, you know, prosper.
Yeah, Paizo is friendly to third parties. I was always talking about third parties being good when I was at Paizo. Because some people would be like, oh, I don't know about third parties. I'd be like, third parties are great. Like, not every one of them is going to get things right every time. Paizo doesn't either. And sure, there are some third-party publishers who don't put as much quality into control as others, but that doesn't mean that they should all be painted as in the same brush. And third-party can do things that are ridiculously cool and weird that are exactly the thing that you like, whereas Paizo kind of does it for the mainstream line. You're not going to get an ancestry that's a dungeon in a first-party product.
I mean, and that's something I want to mention is that we are very, very, very careful at what we're publishing because we don't have a lot of bandwidth and can only put out so much. So that's why we put out dragons or dungeons. Like, we know for a fact no one else probably will do this. Paizo won't do it. And it's something that people want. So we you know, like, I mean, I'll be honest, someone was talking to me about putting out a Viking book, and they really like Vikings, and they really want a Viking book, and they were begging me, and I'm like, no. it's a good idea, and I like Vikings, but it's not for us. It's not challenging or big enough or unique enough that I feel like it would be something that we're going to publish. At least at this stage.
So that kind of rolls into like what will we publish and what won't we? Kind of rolls into Sean Wolf's question.
Right.
Would Roll for Combat as a company ever work with other third-party publishers, like say Iron Kingdoms, to convert their stuff? I'm guessing based on what you just said there about we have to be selective, we're very small. But the answer is likely to be on the side of that we might not because we only have a few people.
Yeah, it's right now, I'd say, I mean, I'll never say never, because I actually do want to publish things from other people. And Mark and I have been even talking to a few high-profile people about that. So it's not that I won't, but we just have to be very careful of what we do. It has to be unique. I mean, that's really where it comes down to. It has to be something so unique and something that also we don't think Paizo would do. Right. That we would publish, and that's
there are very few things we're even considering that we think there's a chance of Paizo. In fact, in our next lineup, like Steven had like almost 20 things that we were talking about. I was like, this one maybe Paizo will do. These other 19, no way.
And we're very careful.
But when it comes to licensing something from somebody else and helping them do a conversion, we have to be careful, like Steven said, because it could be something that's not as it's not necessarily as distinctive. Obviously, it's not as much work as writing it yourself, but also then it's kind of split between a lot of people. Ultimately, if we're putting it out through Roll for Combat, at least for the moment, everything starting with when I joined, which is dragons, if it's rules, then for your character, right, then I'm looking at it as the director of game design. So if we get bigger, either I'm going to become more of an issue with bandwidth, or we'll have to kind of compromise on that current standard that I will always look at it and say, oh, there's some that aren't looked at by Mark because he can't look at everything we're doing because we've ramped up production and got more people. And so we kind of have to decide what we're doing and how we're going to change before we get into things that are bigger, if that makes, or like before you get into more products, if that makes sense. Like Steven said, right now we do a very limited number of products.
Yeah, but we try to make them super high quality. And then, you mean like the next Kickstarter we teased?
Yes, actually, yes,
I think
that's
that will
exactly
be pretty
what I mean.
unique. I think this will be it will be unique. It will be unique. If there was such a thing as unique for unique, this would be it. It would be unique within the subtable of unique. It's really up there. We'll leave it at that.
I mean, it's still something that is similar to something that has come out somewhere somehow, because I mean, what isn't similar to something else?
Everything's been done before.
Everything's been done before.
Yes.
And I'm sure you'll be like, oh, this is similar to something I know,
Yeah.
which is generally a good thing, because
Yes.
then you can understand it easily. But in terms of the sheer scope of what our biggest part of the next Kickstarter is planning to do, the sheer scope, ambition, and doing it the way we're doing it, including with tabletop RPG, I think nobody's done it at that scope.
No one's done
Period.
it. No one. And when they see it, it'll be scary. Scary for us too, but I'm not too worried.
It is a little scary, but it's also really exciting because it could be really successful if people really like it. It's also a big risk.
They're gonna like it.
And I'm sure it's a big risk, especially for me, because I'm the new hire.
Well, I think we've been working pretty hard on it
because your money is down on it.
Yeah,
so
we've been working hard on it for months now, and and we will announce it. So the schedule isn't out yet, but at PaizoCon we have 2 talks scheduled, and one of them we're going to talk about how to build monsters and how to successfully build monsters for both RPG Superstar and just in general, because I love monsters, because monsters are one of these things that like anyone can make them, but making them just right is damn hard. It's really
easy to play, hard to master.
It is. They're hard to master. Monsters are really tough to get just right. It's like cooking, it's like, oh yeah,
I've seen how much better you got at them through the time of Battle Zoo, because I saw your monsters that you first submitted to Paizo, and you like you said, easy to make, but they weren't mastered yet. No. And once you went through all those Battle Zoo ones from the first Battle Zoo bestiary, the monster stuff I've seen from you after that hasn't been a lot, but it's clear how much that experience changed your knowledge and understanding to make you really know it a lot more.
Well, I was good at concepts. I was never short on concepts. Concepts are dime a dozen, but it's execution is hard.
Concepts are kind of the thing you don't learn just by going through
it's execution. But and also, to be honest, I had good people, because Patrick and Ron gave me feedback, and that's what really
the cycle is now complete because you were able to give.
I know, and I gave the cycle is complete because I gave them feedback. It's all going back and forth. It is weird. Well, because no one gives.
You were but a pupil.
No, because they loved it, because no one gives them feedback on adventures, and I feel like that's something I'm pretty good at, is the adventure stuff, which is why we did one. And the Battle Zoo adventure, I mean, Mark could talk to this, is very different. Well, than anyone, really. It's not even different than a Paizo adventure. I'd say it's different than anyone's adventure.
This is the first time that I can now officially say that I've read everything that is in Jewel of the Indigo Owls. Last week, I read almost everything. I've now read everything. Obviously, they're not finalized. They're changes, so I haven't read everything that will eventually be in it. But yeah, it's not going to make you say, wow, this doesn't look like an adventure path at all. But there's techniques that Steven uses that are based on film, kind of tricks to make a good film or to make a good narrative with story beats and things like that are pretty advanced that he did in his development pass. And so even though he's, as far as I know, Steven never developed an adventure before, his development pass is really full of a lot of notes, and since he does it by giving everything that he's changing as feedback to freelancers, it makes it so that they learn more than like the standard Paizo development process, where the Paizo developer will do it themselves because it's faster than making a giant feedback and then letting them know what it is.
Yeah. And for those who think it's like, oh, Steve and Mark are like all full of themselves, we're not. Trust me. We're trying to actually give this as information for you and like how it's done in the industry. So it's hard to do without sounding a little pompous, and sometimes I feel, but it's like it's hard to not talk about it though.
Self-conscious about that too.
Sometimes it's like I'm not saying, oh, our adventure pet's better than anyone else. Very simple. I've talked about this before. I have a background in script writing and movies and television, so there's tricks. If anyone has taken a script writing course or written a book, or there's beats, there's methodologies, and I haven't really seen this done in adventures. People write adventures, I'm not exactly sure how. Everyone writes them a little differently. Sometimes you just want a dungeon crawl, sometimes you just want to have a mystery and so forth. I took a traditional adventure that you would see like in a movie, like the Avengers, or like a big Marvel movie in multiple parts. There's very specific beats, highs and lows, and different areas you want to hit. And then I reverse engineered and put adventure around that. So the fact we were just talking to Linda about something is that we added a very scary part to the adventure that occurred after a very quiet part. And that's on purpose because it wakes you up. It's literally called the wake up. That's actually what it's called in a script. So we do like the wake up, things like that.
So when you say like that, we're not trying to say it's the best adventure that's ever been written, I'll even go farther and say I'm pretty confident that if some of you who are watching this have like read and played every Paizo AP, there probably will be one or two, even I, though I'm biased and I like this adventure, there probably will be one or two that are your favoriets from Paizo.
Of course.
Oh, I
love
like
Paizo
better
adventures
because it's the one that's the theme that you like the best. But I bet you that when you read Jewel of the Indigo Isles, because of the screenwriting tips and tricks that Stephen put in, you might learn something that you might have used if you run that adventure again. That's your favorite, that you change things around a little bit in the story to make an even bigger impact.
Mark, look at this one. Cheese of Ages says Stephen has a background in a lot of things. Isn't having multiples against the character generals? Mark, do I have a lot of backgrounds in a lot of things? It seems like
I think that what you have is that your background is like in this. You've got computer science plus this vague communication thing,
right?
That the vague communication thing winds up being a lot of things that Cheese of Ages is talking about, because it winds up being publishing. Well, that's communication, right? It winds up being like knowing about movies and screenplay. That's
and I did advertising,
communication background,
right? So, advertising background for a long time.
Yeah, you I guess have that it sort of exemplifies like the two things that Carnegie Mellon was most known for, right? Computer science and the acting school that's also there.
That's right. And writing, creative writing. They're one of the best departments. And technical writing are actually one of the best in technical.
But the two that are like top in the country that are like the computer science and theater.
I'm also old. That's true. Look, if for whatever it's worth, now I understand what wisdom means. Like intelligence versus wisdom. This is wisdom. Seriously, it's like I purposely try to do a lot of things, and I'm trying to mix things up, and then you get a little bit of skill in something over time, and then I was building.
That makes sense, because you'll be like, oh yeah, 25 years ago I used to do this exact layout task, and I would be like, 25 years ago I was in grade school.
Exactly. Right. So... You get you know what? So I'm going to tell you all something. Find an old doctor. Do not find a young doctor. I'm telling you right now, you want that doctor who has seen and done everything. And the closest analogy is when in my other job, when we build websites, when a website or something technology goes down, me and my crew can look at it and say, oh yeah, it's XYZ. Like, because we've seen it and we know. So it's the same exact deal. It's like you've seen it all. And after a while, you just know what it is. You don't even have to look. Dylan wrote back, oh, I had to switch backer kit surveys. Sorry, LOL. Okay, Dylan. I guess you got it. Thanks. Yeah, backer kit's a little kludgy sometimes, unfortunately, but it's what we got. And there's nothing else out there, really. And There are, but you don't want to use them because they're not as good. And if they get too good, BackerKit buys them. That's actually true. So like
Aleph says the Steven background gives you expert proficiency in all those skills. Actually, I think it gives you the Elven longevity feat, even though you're not 100 years old. The one where each day you're just like, oh yeah, I have a background in pharmaceuticals. Now I'm trained in pharmaceuticals for this day.
Well, you know why? Because
I mean, you made websites for them, but do you actually have a background in pharmaceuticals?
No. Well, I do all their websites. And when you do all the websites for pharmaceutical
you just
companies,
wake up each day and you
learn a lot.
You got a background.
There's very few people. It's also a very small community. But the thing is, like, if you asked me about, I don't know. I mean, there's some. I'm trying to think of a background I don't know that much about.
Okay. I think I will find a background that you don't know much about. What about theoretical quantum physics?
No, I do not.
Okay.
that I do not. You got me on that one. Mostly geek backgrounds, though, like anything sort of in the geek sphere. The other thing is also I started early, and they talked about that, like the whole thing about, like, I used to be really into like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. Like, Bill Gates got where he was because his dad worked in technology, and he got access to computers when no one else had them. So by the time computers became mainstream, he already had 15, 20 years on everyone else, which is incredibly rare. I got on the internet in 1986. That, to say is a gigantic advantage, is an understatement. Is that by the time the internet was mainstream, I already had 15 plus years on everyone. And that's also why I do this for a living, because like if you start in something very early, it is a huge advantage over everyone else.
You get in on the ground floor.
No, seriously, you get in on the ground floor.
No, it's true.
Yeah,
like it's true for anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't even know. I mean, we put out extremely quality products, but the Roll for Combat Battle Zoo line, if it was in a saturated market with lots and lots of super high quality, super high budget, like giant hardcover third-party books for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I don't know if it would have done the same amount. Maybe it would have done more if there was a giant ecosystem for it. Maybe it would have done less if it wasn't.
I was on the internet before the internet existed. I was not on ARPANET.
You weren't on ARPANET?
No, Steven? I was not. But I was on before
I got the impression
ARPANET.
You might have been, because you were like,
I was
there's
pretty
so
close.
Many military people.
I was. It was close, though. It was very, very close. It was 1986. Well, you can get it if you had CompuServe, and then you can get on the internet. And then I went to Carnegie Mellon. Everyone at Carnegie Mellon gets an internet account. CMU is actually one of the hubs of the internet. It's actually not known. There's a couple of core hubs, even though it's decentralized. There actually are hubs, and the police of the internet are actually at CMU. There is a police force, and I can show you where the building is. It's actually amazing. If you look at it, it's offset, it's bomb proof, and there are armed guards in front of this building at all times. And it's like right on Forbes Avenue. You wouldn't even know it's there. It's just like, what's that building? It's like, that is, quote, the police of the internet.
Steven has been on the internet since longer than Linda. And I don't mean longer than Linda has been on the internet. I mean longer than
Linda's existed.
Yes.
Anyhow, wait, there actually was a question. Are you going to be on Drive-Thru RPG? No. Sort of. The 5e books are actually on Drive-Thru RPG.
Oh, I didn't even know that they were.
I put the 5e books because the 5e market is a lot bigger on Drive-Thru.
But they take a huge cut, so we much prefer if you get it from us.
Huge chunk. They take...
Because you're not exclusive on them, so don't they take like
35%?
5%?
35%, which is
and that's off
a
the
lot.
Top line too. So
so it's a lot. It adds up. I mean, it's a significant amount, and so for our main books, we just sell them directly. In my opinion,
we would be much happier if you bought it directly, I guess, because that lets us keep it at a lower cost.
Yeah, we are actually making a true Shopify site. And then we'll move everything over.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to make a real site.
See? I knew that less than I did the grammar tools.
Well, the thing with the Shopify site is that, I mean, it's not that hard to do, but
I mean, given that you made sites for giant pharmaceutical companies,
Oh,
I'm
no,
sure
no,
making a
no.
Shopify site
Oh,
is
I already,
like,
yeah, it's not that hard.
you can do it with your toes.
It's Shopify is also really easy to use. It's more that I've gotten lazy because BackerKit does everything. It actually works really well. It's like it's not the
What
greatest
cut
site.
did they take? Is it a lot
Very.
less than
Oh, it's
Shopify?
like 1%, 2%.
Oh wow, that's like nothing.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm like, I have no incentive to get off of it because it takes so little. It's actually just the transaction fees, basically, through
Wow.
Stripe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost no difference. So, and also what I actually, right, some people wanted to buy the books directly into RPG Key. Yeah, that's actually something I was thinking of doing, is putting the
Did
books.
RPG let you do that?
Yeah,
I would
you
assume
can.
they don't.
You can
Wow.
do that. Yeah, what you could do is you could
If I
distribute.
was them, I wouldn't let people
No,
do
no,
that
you can
because
do
I would
it.
want my 35% cut.
No, they'd
If I
rather
were
you
to
just
drive
be
to
on the
RPG.
platform, and then no, because they just want you on the platform. They don't care how they get
Oh,
you.
fair enough. Fair enough.
So what you do is you can give the key, like I can import the emails and then say, okay, all these people with this email get the Battle Zoo Bestiaire for free.
Oh, fair enough.
And then you just do it. It's actually, but right now I'm also very tentative. If you need problems or having trouble getting your PDF, I will write you. I will send it to you if necessary. I'm usually very fast. You get it within a few hours at most. So it hasn't been so much of an issue yet. The only time it's kind of crazy is right after like a release comes out. Then I get a lot of emails. But other than that, it's not like I get 50 emails a day. If anything, that shows you how well things are going, because
Yeah.
I get maybe 1 email, 2 emails a week.
So Aleph asked how much Kickstarter takes. And I think that's 5%
5%.
fee plus a 3 to 5% payment processing fee, right?
Yes. So Kickstarter takes 5%.
And then BackerKit would be a 1% plus the 3 to 5% payment processing or something
Yeah,
like that.
Stripe is Stripe's pretty popular. They do almost everyone. They take it's a fee. It's like 2.9 to 2.3% depending on.
Oh, okay, that's even less than 3 to 5.
Well, and then there's a per transaction fee of like 30 cents or something. So.
Oh, okay.
So
But
approximately.
the main point is that it's so much less than drive-through,
Yes.
even for Kickstarter, that it's not even funny.
Yeah. I mean, drive-through takes 35%, and if you buy through us, and then once I even go to Shopify, it'll be like 2.3%.
Oh, that's
And that's it.
That's even less
Plus
than
hosting
by a small
fees.
amount than the one.
Well, there's
plus
hosting
2.3.
fees and stuff like that through
fair
Shopify.
enough.
So, but yeah, I mean, hell, I could write my own system, but it ain't worth it. Trust me.
I think we're not going to make it to 50, so you won't have to do something weird, Steven.
Oh, we're only up to 36
35.
likes.
I don't think we're going to get 50
36 likes.
before the
Come
end
on,
of the stream.
get your friends to like us, and then we will get it up there. No, the
But you didn't
Kickstarter.
say exactly what weird thing you were going to do.
I know.
NoNet got those immediate number of likes.
I was going to
that she
show you
specifically
how to
said.
make a dragon with your hands. 2 dragons with your hands.
See, maybe people will be more excited by knowing what it is, or they might
All
be
right, I'll
let
show you.
down.
I'll show you how to. I'm not going to show you how to do it, but I'll show you the dragon. Are you ready? Are you ready? Hello. I'm a dragon. Little tail. Ding, ding, ding. There we go. No one knows how I did it. I learned that when I was like 5 years old. And supposedly, I've never met anyone who knows how to do that ever. My kids know how to do it. And they're very
You have
popular
a
in
background
school.
in hand dragons.
I have a background in hand dragons. No, but it's funny because I think there was other animals you can make. It was some Japanese thing. It was like you can use your hands to make different animals. But I learned the dragon. I was very popular in elementary school.
Fair enough.
So there you go. And if we made 50, I would show you how to do it. But we're up to 42. We're almost there. Trogdor. It is Trogdor. Trogdor. I have a Trogdor t-shirt I wear every so often.
Do you have a background in Trogdor?
I do have a background in Trogdor.
I guess with your
I
Trogdor
love Strong Bad. I used to have all the stuffed animals. I had a big cheat I had the cheat stuffed animal, and if you kicked it, it would scream. And that thing is gone, gone, gone. I wish I did not get rid of
Did
it.
your dog eat the cheese?
No, no, it just was a
Screaming?
space issue.
Oh,
You
fair enough.
understand what it's like, is you got like stuffed animals all over your place,
We
right?
have stuffed animals and we have like no space because
Right.
we're in Redmond. So
Yeah,
yes,
well,
I do
that's when I used to
understand.
live in Manhattan. So I had
Yeah, same
I had
situation.
oh, are we going to be on Amazon? Yes, yes. Once the physical books get into the warehouse, and once we get them to everyone, we will be on Amazon because Amazon only takes a small fee, and
They only take a small fee, but
it's Amazon.
they will sell it. They will just sell it for
They
less.
wow,
They'll
do they
it at a
sell
loss
books?
because they're Amazon.
They take a fee. It's something like
Yeah, no, but they'll discount it. They'll be
yeah,
like,
it's like
oh, it's
12% or
it's 40%
something.
off, and now it's selling it at a loss.
Yeah, it's not that much. And more importantly, it's Amazon. Like you will like just being on Amazon, you're going to sell. So if it's a choice between, or so the PDFs, I'd rather us sell them. Except for the 5e. The 5e, that was an experiment too. I wanted to see how it does. It does fine on
Now, is that putting it on the Amazon Marketplace as our own seller? Is that just having Amazon say
Amazon
they're
is
going to take it?
fulfillment. So you do what's called it's like Amazon AFW or something. But so what you do is that you send it to their warehouse. You can fulfill it, but it's just easier if they do it because then you get all the
Oh
same.
yeah, I know
way
about
easier.
that. So you have
Yeah.
to you do have to like pay them for the space, right?
Yeah, you pay them for a pallet,
You
but
pay them for the space.
we will
and then
literally
also,
have
if you
one
don't pay them
pallet.
for advertisement, their new way of doing like similar products is that they won't say that your product is similar,
That's
and people
okay.
might never find it.
Yeah,
But
it's okay.
They don't
It's okay.
They don't directly take that much of a direct cut. That's sort of
No.
their thing. So they get you on there by making it seem like it's a good deal for people, but it's a little trickier than it seems, is what I've heard.
Oh, London knows how to do the dragon hand thing.
Oh,
Oh, London, do you know other animals? I've never found it on the internet. I know no one who knows about this. You're the only other person I ever met in my entire life who knew. I've never, and I've been on the lookout my whole life. I did it in camp. I did it in school. I've done it in college. I've done it everywhere. No one's ever seen it. My kids do it. So yeah, we're gonna definitely be on Amazon, and that actually will be curious because if it sells really well, which I think it might, just because it's Amazon, what can you do? Then we'll print more quickly.
I'd say it just depends on how visible it is on Amazon because it
Yeah.
can be hard to get visibility.
That's true. So someone asked about the Dragons PDF for 5e. That is not out. And
Yep, I still need to do a pass on that, and we are juggling those products. And right now, I'm prioritizing products that aren't done at all because they still need to be converted to 5e, so they have a longer critical path. Whereas 5e Dragons just needs my pass and then a layout, and then it's done. So
yeah,
I think that once I probably should do like the Jewel of the Indigo Isles and some of the other things that will need a 5e conversion, and then Dragons.
yeah, we're kind of in a groove with Jewel, and we're trying to get it done. We're very close because like we're up to the third adventure, and like we're in a groove. And once the third adventure is
be
done,
at like 3.25 today.
yeah,
something
and
like
so
that.
once we get the third adventure done, I actually also have to
The
go
third one's
through.
the most complicated by far.
Unfortunately, it is.
It has so many different things in it that are amazingly cool, but like amazingly difficult compared to like the first one is like a pretty simple romp, and it's a good way to like get started if you're whether you're new or experienced. But the third one, it's not hard for the GM, but it's hard for the author and for us.
Oh yeah, in
We
fact,
make it easy for you.
No, it's
and
easy
that
for the
makes it hard
GM. It's for
us.
us. We had to balance it. If you saw my notes, I mean, I came up with this whole subsystem of subsystem. Like we're trying to make it fun for you, but making it fun for you, we have to reverse engineer and come up with these systems so that it's
Like,
entertaining.
There's like mini games that you play, and one of them is just like Linda came up with like a whole new form of poker.
Oh,
It
that
was just
poker
like-
game is awesome. That was a great poker game. And someone who plays tournament poker. That's right, another thing I do, and has finished in the money many
background in poker.
times. You can look it up. In fact, you look me up. I'm listed publicly. I like that game a lot. I'm going to try that out. Actually, I'm going to try
Oh,
that
you
out.
like it that much?
Yeah, it actually is a great game. Like I've seen a lot of those because I saw Golem, and Golem's okay, but this is even better than Golem. I thought. Like I thought this was a good. I don't know if she made that up completely or it was a variation on something because there's
No,
so
she just
many.
made it up.
That's
Just
good. I'm
off
actually
the
going to
top
show
of
it
her
to. I have a couple of poker buddies who play professionally. I actually have one friend who literally makes a living playing poker, and I will show it to him and see what he thinks.
Okay.
And
There you
that's
go.
he's nuts. Like that's like
I see there is a Steven Glicker poker player on cardplayer.com.
See?
Plus, you mentioned that you like poker on your Roll for
I know.
Combat page.
There's another
So-
dragon. This is the one with the
Which dragon is that?
that's the reverse dragon and it has horns. So,
Is it an eternal dragon?
yes, it is.
Okay.
Oh wait, we got to do a new ancestry hand dragon. Actually,
A hand
that would be a
dragon. Or
feat.
maybe that's a heritage.
That would actually be a feat. It's like you make a dragon with your hands, get a +2 to your distraction roll or something. you're like, hi there, how you doing? Oh, sock puppet. That's it. Puppetry. That would actually be, puppetry actually would be a good feat. Now I think about it, there must be a puppetry
I mean, you
feat.
could have puppetry stuff. That would especially be good for like a Wayang ancestry, since they are like sort of based off of shadow puppets.
See, this is where third party comes in. If you said, "Hey, can we get a hand puppet feat or feats on hand puppets?"
Let's do a puppeteer archetype.
Or
It's
a
all
puppeteer
about
archetype.
puppets.
The thing is, though, I have to say, Paizo is awesome, and they come out with, especially, I think Starfinder really helped them embrace. In fact, I think Starfinder went too far, believe it or not.
Really?
The cool, goofy angle.
I don't know. I like the goofy.
I like the
Starfinder.
goofy angle, but I felt like I really do like their bestiary. What are they called? The alien guides. And I felt like
the Alien
Archive. I felt like the first two are so really good. By the third and fourth, like they were getting goofy. I don't think they had a lot of goofy stuff in there. And I was like, okay, even for me, this is getting maybe, and I have a high goof level. I was like, I think I'm even getting a little
I
goofed
don't
out here.
always go that goofy in Pathfinder, but when I don't know. For me, when I've played Starfinder, the goofier ones have been the more fun than when I tried to take it seriously.
Is so Starfinder when
Starfinder seriously, I don't have as much fun, but when I go in on all the goof, it's so good.
Starfinder somehow went from sort of serious to goofy to total goof fest. It got really weird quickly, but I like it.
It caught up to my playtest group because during the closed Starfinder playtest, there wasn't almost anything out yet, so I didn't know that they were going to get even more goofy later on. But it was just total. Our thing was total goof.
Yeah.
I created a playtest adventure called Ryza of the Space Lords.
There you go.
That was basically Rise of the Rune Lords, except for I ran it in Starfinder. So just everything was converted into being space, whatever it was, and then I just made things up. So like instead of going to Magnimar, the city of monuments, you went to Magmar 4, the monument and lava planet. And instead of being run by Mayor Grobaris, it was run by the vile Grobar the Hutt, who was, it was just all just pastiches of stuff.
Well, my point is, I think the goof,
it's hilarious.
The goof has rubbed off on Pathfinder, which is good. I feel it's good.
I don't even know if it's the same as the goof rubbing off on Pathfinder. I think it's just people have wanted to put in goof in both.
Well, like
and
the Poppet.
Separate people.
I mean, the Poppet. Come on. Do you think?
But I don't think that's Starfinder rubbing off on.
Do you
Pathfinder.
think they would have done the Poppet?
I think that Eleanor and Luis and I, as far as I could help with as being a design lead, wanted to put in Poppets, and we would have, whether or not Starfinder was doing those other things.
I don't know. Do you think 5 years ago they would have put in Poppets, or 6 years ago?
That's a different question. I don't think the difference is Starfinder. I think the difference is who's on the Pathfinder team.
Fair enough. That's actually true because Eleanor
is 6 years ago,
very creative.
You wouldn't have had Eleanor and Luis in a position to do that.
Yeah, they're very creative, and they definitely.
There are some people who at Paizo who are more serious and who would have been like, "No, that's too silly."
Luis is pretty silly, and Eleanor is also a little goofy. So you get the two of them. I can see why
like some of the best selling things were just like weird conversations that like would be in some side channel with the leads of a Lost Omens book. And Eleanor and Luis were the development leads, and I'd be the design lead. And you'd have like say like Avi from Paizo as the edit lead. We'd all be in there and we'd talk about something, and then sometimes it would just be a joke. Like I would be like, I need something else so that we can get up this space here. And Luis would be like, why don't you make a chainsaw rune? I was like, okay. He's
I
like, well,
love
no, I was just kidding. I was like, no,
chainsaws.
I'll do it.
Dude, the
I'll do it.
chainsaw that was the best part about Iron Gods. Walking around with that chainsaw. Damn, man. I love that
Just
thing.
so many things were like that. Or just like we're just kind of a joke where I was just
love
like,
the
okay.
chainsaw rune.
So it was like this Sovereign Steel entry doesn't have a shield, and the shield will not fit. If you try to put it in there, it just won't. There just isn't space. So so Luis was just like, maybe the Black Sovereign who used a two-ended weapon is just like, I don't use shields, so no one should get shields because my steel. And I was like, okay. So that fits his personality, right? So like there were often things that were like that where we just put it in, and it wound up in retrospect being some like hilarious component of the book.
Sean White for being able to play as Luchador.
Yeah.
That's 150% Luis and 10% Ryan, because he also is big into luchadors.
If you mean the wrestler archetype,
yes,
then I think that you are underestimating the.
Well, he wrote that adventure path. Luis wrote that whole one.
You're underestimating the fact that Michael Sayer wrote the wrestler archetype.
No, it's a luchador. There was luchadors. There was an adventure path. Which one?
There was totally an adventure path with luchadors.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
Luis does a lot of luchador stuff. Okay? And he did the luchador spirit in Book of the Dead. So you are absolutely right that he is very pro luchador. But if you're talking about the PF2 wrestler archetype, I'm talking about the
luchador. I'm not talking about that.
Mike wrote that, and the two of them are the big wrestling and luchador people.
Let me tell you, I strongly recommend. I saw a luchador fight, and I was in the front row. See luchadors in person. It is. I can't even put it in words. It is amazing. It's cool on TV, but it's not the same. And they often will come out of the ring because that's part of the thing. And because I was in the front row, they literally came out of the ring right onto me. The guy like stood up. I like patting him on the back, and he was just like giving me the nod and went right back in. See luchadors in person. It will change your life. It is an art form. It is beautiful.
People
so
are
much
also
fun.
mentioning that in the general culture, there were all these gritty, dark, realistic reboots maybe 6 years ago, and now sort of shifted over to allow more whimsy.
Well,
that's true. And like there were literally meetings where we saw this at Paizo, the thing that you said, Stephen. Mm-hmm. And like for example, Leshy is in the Lost Omens character guide.
Mm-hmm.
And I've mentioned this before several times as like it's a credit to like the ongoing developing relationship between the different people at Paizo and some of the very upper managers, because at that meeting, I had a proposal from the other designers. I was the only designer there because I was the design lead, and like all the developers were there, and like Judy from editing and some of the highest ranking people in the editorial department. And so I was like, okay, one of the suggestions that we were doing a vote. One of the suggestions that came in from the design team was Leshy. And so at that meeting, every single person with a title of director or higher from every department said they did not like it and they didn't want it. And then everybody else said they did like it. So then the directors looked to each other and they said, you know what, though, even though we all don't like it, that means it's not for us. The fact that everybody else in the room does want it means it's going to be popular, and we should accept that, you know, sometimes people want things with more whimsy than we do, and they put it in. And that was an amazing decision. It showed that a difference, because when I started at Paizo, maybe it would be more like the people who were the top did have like decades of experience, and they would be like, you know, we'll do it more our way. And so that kind of moved on towards being more collaborative, to sort of working together. And I literally saw it because I even said it out loud. That was like a turning point. And then after Leshy's and like the Cactus Leshy art in Lost Omens Ancestry Guide and some of those other ones were super successful, and they remembered that. And so never again was there really a like, oh, this is a cool whimsy thing, let's not do it at that point, if that makes sense. So It's sort of, it's just like it's an ongoing culture in any company and in any place.
Yeah, no, that's a big part of like what we do, because like all of our books are bright, and we have. I would say it's a very careful balance between, I wouldn't call it goofy, but a very careful balance between whimsy and serious. Like the
And I mean,
dragons.
there's some deep stuff in the Jeweled Indigo Owls. I even put a few sidebars of content warnings on a few of the areas.
Oh, it gets pretty crazy. Mhm.
Usually the content warning is more like, in this one room there's something that you might not want to describe.
No, it gets a little nuts. But
if your group is squeamish, but it's only in Adventure 2 that has even any content warnings. It's mostly more whimsical and Jeweled Indigo Owls, but it's
a
still,
warning. You're spoiling it. Spoiling it. Adventure 2. Adventure 2. It's not. It's all warning. Butterflies and rainbows.
But you said it was like Pixar, and Pixar has things like
Pixar has stuff in there that was.
It has things like Sid the Toy Destroyer and Toy Story, right?
Toy Story, the end of Toy Story 3? I mean, come on. They're like, okay, we're all about to burn to death. Everybody hold hands as we all die together. I'm like, holy crap.
Toy Story is just very depressing overall. It's meta of like, you will be abandoned by children.
Or even in Finding Nemo, that whole part with the sharks, that is scary, man. It is scary. And they do it on purpose because it explicitly gives you an extremely strong emotional response, which makes you memorize and remember your time with it, and it works.
So Rules Lawyer and No Nat Ones were having a discussion in chat about like goblins becoming core and whether that was too much whimsy back in the playtest.
Oh yeah,
that's
people were
that was a conversation
pissed.
Like it was a conversation even at Paizo that wasn't just about whimsy, but it was also about, will people play them as like chaotic evil murder killers or not? And it turned out that, like, I wasn't sure. I thought people might do the evil murder killers, but it turned out that people mostly didn't. Like, we got empirical evidence that people were like, no, we want to show goblins that are not doing that. And we don't want to, and a lot of players were not playing goblins. It's just super disruptive and like killing everyone's dog and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like with Leshies, it's so funny because I was at PaizoCon a few years ago when there was still Pathfinder 1 only, and there was an adventure where you got to play Leshies, and if you remember this, Mark, it was like a special adventure, and everyone was talking about it. It was like the most talked about thing at that PaizoCon. Like, you get to play Leshy, you get to play Leshy. Everyone was so excited. So if I was at that meeting, I would have been like, this is a no-brainer, people. Like, everyone wants to play them, and more importantly,
it succeeded at the meeting, right? That was
right, but it was an option. It's an option.
It was the last one that made it in. Hobgoblins and Iruxi Lizard Folk were locked.
Yeah.
But Leshy made it in at the meeting at the end of the day. So,
but these aren't core rules. It's not like saying, oh, everyone has to have a Leshy in their party. It's like, no, it's an option. You know, that's the thing. Also gets weird. Like, people get angry just because, well, there's Leshies in this, or what's the pug guys? The Shoonies.
So it's Shoonies.
Shoonies. People are like, oh, Shoonies, it ruined Path. I'm like, you don't have to play them. Okay, it's just, it's in there for people who want to do it. You don't have to be that person. Trust me. It's just in there as an option. That's all it is. And we give you more options. So there you go. You get lots of options.
If No Nat's awake, congratulations on Sinclair funding No Nat. That was 2 hours, I think, for full $35,000 funding.
Yeah, let's see. I can tell you how well it's going to do based on
your background in
no, I have there's algorithms. Wow, 50,000, 500 backers. That's actually pretty good. That means you're getting about 50,000 divided by 500.
Getting about 100.
Yeah, $100 per backer.
They have really good. Like a bigger package.
They have some very
they have
some really
and an upgraded dice set and some other things like that. So there's a 200.
Yeah, there's a couple in there, but $100 a backer is like a huge amount. That's actually kind of the magic number.
If you get $100 per backer, you're in good shape. And they're doing it, putting out fewer books than we had to do. So we hit 100 per backer as well, but that was with more books.
We had to do, but I put out, it's also just because of the way I like to put out in the end of the day, content wins. Like, because there's a lot of people who will put out a book and 20,000 tchotchkes, and that's it. And it's one book, maybe one and a half.
Nona did 2 books, and
he did 2 solid books. No, that's 2 solid books. Completely fair. I'm talking about other people, and I feel like that is. And I used to back at the highest ones. I don't even bother. I will back at the lowest just to get the books, and that's it, because I don't need a lot of this stuff sometimes. But
well, even if you go for the books in Sinclair's, then you're already getting them.
Oh, you get a lot of value.
You're already getting them almost enough for the 100, if I recall correctly.
And we added stuff because we specifically, when we do ours, we try to give a lot of value. And like, I wasn't going to do minis, but people really wanted minis, so we added them, and that was it. Cheese of Ages. Speaking of wacky designs, Mark, do you feel that it's fair to charge 2 actions to give 1 action to a giant mech, then need 6 pilots in a fist fight with a giant Baba Yaga? Serious questions.
Okay.
Wow.
So
okay, that's all you.
That's a very important question, because a giant mech with 6 pilots that was fighting against a giant Baba Yaga, the main thing that you have to think about that is the quality of the character versus the quality of the mech, right? So if you can just have like a dog in there spending 2 actions, and 6 dogs spend 2 actions, and then that gives the giant mech 6 actions to fight Baba Yaga, and it's a really strong mech, that might not work very well, because that would just incentivize putting like level 1 commoners or dogs or whatever inside of the mech. Now, if you have like, there's a check, and it's like, well, you have to roll a crafting or engineering lore or giant robot lore check of a certain DC, or else you don't give the mech an action. So that you need someone who's actually a skilled pilot. Then you might start being able to think about that. However, you still might not want the giant mech to get 6 actions, because it could allow it to do some weird things depending on what abilities it has. So why don't you consider having, with the 6 pilots, 3 of them produces the 3 actions, and maybe one of them, and you could even be like, well, one of them is controlling the legs, and so it produces movement, and this one is controlling the weapons, and so you could have them do different actions, and maybe some of the other ones are doing something passive, like putting up a temporary hit point shield against Baba Yaga or something else, so they each have their own roles rather than just going into 6 actions. So it almost doesn't make sense if you're in like the arm of the giant robot that you're giving it an extra stride. It's like, I have 6 actions, we'll use them all to stride. The arms are also striding. So that is my answer, and I may have gotten the details on your question wrong, because I was making a lot of assumptions there.
I would just have it that it's like a ship. I mean, if you have like a battleship, it's not like, battleships have thousands of people on it because there's thousands of individual moving parts.
Sure.
So
but you're not giving necessarily the battleship a giant robot laser action. Right.
But my point is like, not everyone can do everything. So it's not like, here's 10 actions that anyone can do. A way
to think of it is like siege weapons, because in siege weapons, you need to make sometimes a certain check to reload it, and so you can't have, for very difficult siege weapons, you can't have like a basic rando reload. It's usually not a very hard check, so you could still have a much lower level person than the siege weapon reloading it.
Yeah. Or think of Voltron. You have those 5 pilots to control one gigantic mech.
5 robot lions.
Or the 15, the little known, little loved vehicle Voltron with 15. 15! What the heck were they thinking? Let's have 15 robots make Voltron.
Why not?
It was,
if 5 is good,
why
not 15?
Because it was so lame. It was so lame.
Maybe it was like
I loved Voltron.
Jewel of the Indo Isles, and you ordered 5. They ordered 5 robots at first to the robot freelancers, and then we're like, actually 15 robots in the end.
That's true. That's an apt analogy.
Long, so.
It is. Yeah, but you can't keep track of that many characters. 5 is just the right amount. Battle Beyond the Stars. You have what was it? It had not Battle Beyond the Stars. What was the name? All those. Well, there was.
Hey, Shan Wolf says Vehicle Voltron was the best.
But so. Vehicle Voltron sucked. It sucked.
It sounds like there's
the Lions. The Lions were way better. Even Rick and Morty agrees with me, except they were ferrets in Rick and Morty. So
Yeah, there's gonna be a fight here: Sean Wolf versus Steven on Vehicle Voltron.
oh, like name like one character from the vehicle Voltron. You can't because there's 15 characters. It's ridiculous.
I can Vehicle Voltron.
It was, you can't have 50 characters. Your brain, that's why, remember, you always have 7 plus or minus 2 for main characters. Otherwise, you can't remember. That's as much as you can remember without straining yourself, and that's it. So that's why everyone has 5, because 7 plus or minus 2 go on the side of, easy and make it 5. There you go. All Voltrons are good Voltrons. Stop fighting. There you go. That's right. All Voltrons are good Voltrons. So.
All right. Well, now that we've determined about Voltrons, do we have anything else? I think we answered all of the super chats.
I think we did.
If not, I want to point out to people that not only am I going to be on Arcane Bark tonight at 7 Pacific and 10 Eastern, but this week I will be on a special live stream with Rules Lawyer on Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific for an interview. Or an interrogation, I guess, because it has like a whole art of me being on a witness stand or something.
Is that live? We're recorded.
Yeah, it's live, I think. I'm pretty sure because it said it was a stream and I was asked to tell people to watch it, which normally would not happen for a recorded session.
Huh.
So I intuit that it's live.
Huh.
And I was asked about like super chats and things like that. So it sounds live to me.
Okay. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I mentioned that we're going to be doing the thing about building monsters at PaizoCon. We are also going to do a sneak peek preview of...
Oh yeah, you got distracted, but we're
not
doing the sneak peek.
I totally got distracted.
It's the big... We buried the lead. We're going to tell you what the big giant thing is that we've been keeping secret this...
It's actually all of 2022 line. That's actually the line.
We've been keeping... one of these secrets almost since I started doing anything with Battle Zoo.
Oh yeah, these have been secret for a long time.
We're gonna finally announce it, and there's actually what we're trying to do a third panel with Nonat, right?
Yeah, we put a third panel in. I didn't hear from them yet. I think because we have Vanessa on that panel, and Vanessa's the guest of honor, so that has to coordinate with their schedule. So they're working on the schedule. We have a lot of people on our panels. They're doing with
Vanessa. So it's going to have Nonat and Vanessa.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is I don't think they're broadcasting anything other than the keynote. So we'll just broadcast it here. Like I'm going to bring my camera. I'll bring my computers.
I think that they're doing the online panels, which probably means that people who are at the physical event will go to a quiet space and join the online panel.
Yeah, we're just gonna literally do a panel.
But we're gonna do it in like an actual seminar space, like PaizoCons of old with Steven's, because Steven has a background in getting in cameras and getting things set up for.
I do. It's what I started out. That's what I used to do. I did when I first learned Macromind Director, if anyone remembers that, which eventually became Macromedia Director, which eventually became Adobe Director, which eventually became Adobe Flash. I used to do when I started out my
Adobe
career.
Flash died.
Then it died. But I used to do I used to, that's how I got my start, is I would do animated presentations for advertising agencies at pitches. And I learned a lot because I was with the CEOs and the presidents and working with them. And here I'm like this 23-year-old kid working with these like presidents of multi-million billion-dollar companies, and their entire presentation was based on me getting this right. And I would fly with them all over the country, all over the world, and that's how I got into this, because I learned a lot. That's a secret. It's like work with the highest level. So I was literally working with the presidents and going to all these pitches for like Volkswagen and Toyota and Citibank. I was with all these companies, and so I would see at the highest levels how things worked, and I was able to sneak my way in and then got into advertising. So there you go. That's how you do it. So long story short is, yes, I do have a background in this. Not as much as most people do. I'd say your average high schooler knows more about it than I do, because they're completely ingrained in the culture and the media. I just know what I know, which is just enough to get us on YouTube. That's about it. That's it. Macro Media Director, burn to CD-ROM. That is correct. I used to.
Oh boy.
One day I'll take out my CD collection. We used to do CDs for pharmaceutical companies. We put them on the wall in my office. We had something like 500 CDs. It was ridiculous. We used to come out with one a week for the pharma companies. That will be another stream. That will be a stream of Ask Steve what he has done in his life, and it is.
We ask if you have a background in certain things.
Ask if you have a background in something.
We make a checklist for yes or no. Right now, we know.
You guys can do you can do the bingo box. You can do the bingo box.
Yes.
Do a bingo box. You'd be amazed.
Yeah, we can make up bingo cards for different things, and it's just like Steven says he has a background in X, and they're all different things, and then you get bingo.
You couldn't believe if I told you all the stuff I did. Do you know I used to be on MTV? How about that? Do you know I actually have videos of me?
Yeah, I actually did know that.
Oh yeah, I did tell you about that. I used to be on MTV. I've been on TV. I actually have. I'll share one day. I have a signed guitar from Weird Al.
On MTV, and then you told somebody else that you'd been on MTV.
I was on MTV.
The third time I learned about it.
I was on MTV in college, and that
you have a background on MTV.
That was the best job I ever had. That was such a good job.
MTV was your best one?
Yeah. I was on a live show and in Manhattan, and so we would like work all day on the show and then party all night. And when back in the early 1990s, you can get into like any bar or club, and they all like, you're from MTV, you got right in. And it was we partied with D-Light one night. Man, those were crazy times, I tell you. I got some stories. Those were fun times. Now I get to go to PaizoCon and party with Mark. Yeah.
There we go. I'm obviously a big partier.
Yeah, you are. It's almost as much fun as going out with D-Light. Yeah.
Any convention, you just see me drinking water because of my voice.
Yeah.
I'll get like 4, 6, 8 bottles of water.
That's right. That's right. Well, we're gonna switch it out with vodka. You won't know. I'm actually not a big drinker. That's the thing. I don't drink a lot. I actually don't drink at all. I drink beer socially.
A lot, but it's water. So
I drink a lot, but it's soda. But I don't drink any alcohol other than beer socially, and that's it. So, and if anyone's going to PaizoCon, let us know, because we will be there.
There's going to be lots of Roll for Combaters there, including as Steven mentioned, Vanessa is a Roll for Combat person and is the guest of honor for
we are everywhere, man. We are everywhere. And that's like a weird coincidence, because she started out on Roll for Combat when her career was really popping, and then since she's been on Roll for Combat, she's done several books for Paizo and then became guest of honor, and now is doing her own thing. She's really
she's been pretty popular for a while too. Yeah. I think even before Roll for Combat,
she did
made like
a
really popular Pathfinder Society playable scenario.
She did one Society scenario when she came to work with me, and she was starting to do freelance, and then she did one Adventure Path. What was that Adventure Path? Abomination Vaults. And I remember her telling me a secret. It's like when it was like not out yet, she's like, I don't know how good it's gonna do. It's a dungeon crawl, that's what she was like. She's like, who knows? And who knew that it was like, it's only the most popular adventure path.
It's so popular it needs to get a hardcover.
I know. It was like, she's like, I guess it was popular.
It was. She did a great job.
I know. It's a great, because if you get it, those are very hard. But if you get them just right, those mega, I have a hobby. I collect those mega adventure. I love reading them. If you get it just right, there's something about like the story of the mega adventure of like going from room to room and level to level and seeing how it evolves, because there's a story through the dungeon, and they got it just right. They really did a good job with that one. That's hard to do. I'd say 90% of the time those are not done well. That's a good, and the maps are awesome, and it's just weird. It's also just a weird adventure. It's really good.
I'm really excited for our announcement panel, like the one about the future of the Battle Zoo line, because we have some really big things to share.
And we could talk about it endlessly, and you guys will not.
I think it's going to be a pretty big panel for people who like roll for combat stuff, because it is, some of the stuff that's in there is even more ambitious than the Dragon book.
Oh,
And the Dragon book was pretty ambitious.
this is I keep telling people like this is the warm up. This really was and it was a good warm up. It was. It actually was very good as a test. Worked. I learned a lot. I definitely learned a lot, because right now
you wouldn't have been ready for this next thing if you had tried to do it cold.
It would have been a nightmare. But now we're way ahead of schedule. I'm actually getting a lot of the work done now. Not the actual.
Also, I am absolutely astounded, based on my understanding of turnarounds from ordering art at Paizo, at how fast some of your artists are. Like, yesterday, everyone, I was on a voice chat with Steven talking about how we were going to get everything done in time for the next Kickstarter. And like, it was like at 9:10 or something like that, we started the voice call, and then he was like, so for this thing in the new unreleased product, like, what specifics do you think should be in it? I was like, well, how about if it's something like that? And he was like, yeah, that sounds right. Okay, I'll tell the artist. And so we were still talking, and at like 9:44, he sends a detailed sketch that looks like a sketch you would get back from artists at Paizo like a month later during the sketch phase. And it's like, so the artist got back the sketch.
And the sketch is almost good enough to publish.
So good.
It's so good. I was like, you could publish this.
I'm just like, how do you even draw that in 34 minutes? Even assuming that they got the message from Steven immediately, and we're just like, I'm gonna draw, no pencils down.
It was just they're really very impressive. Fast. But I also give extensive direction, and I'll show you the email I sent the artist before that, because I gave them.
Don't show them, because I'm
not going to show them. I'm going to show you. I'll show you, Mark. But it's like this. It's like it's probably 3 to 4 pages of notes explaining everything. So when I say I need ABC, they knew exactly what I meant, because I already explained the concept in the prior notes.
Like, you need to understand that Jewel of the Indigo Isles is like going to be over 300 pages of adventure alone.
Yeah. Easily.
But Steven wrote, I think, over 100 pages of unpublished content that is just notes or outlines. If you count his like 60-page outline and like 40 pages,
it's over 100 pages.
Yeah. So there's like
single space.
There's like the secret Steven director's cut of like an additional over 100 pages.
There's a lot. There's actually there's stuff on the cutting, but it's okay, because at levels 1 through 11, there's only so much you can fit in, because you can't. Yeah. And weirdly, when you do the 5e version, it has to even have less, because they level up quicker. So we're gonna make
especially
things
the lower levels.
The
you
lower
can
levels.
Barely put things in.
But it's easy to cut. Like, I was talking to the converter, and we're just gonna like. There's definitely things like, okay, you show up, and these guys are just either the enemies are not there, or something already happened to them, or they're friendly. Basically, it's not an encounter. It's basically an encounter.
And also, Pathfinder 2nd Edition is scrupulous about giving you XP for befriending people or accomplishments that you make. But in 5e, you can just not do that. There's only certain things that the system forces you to give XP for. So you can be like, you don't get it for this, and they're already friendly.
All right, so we got 44 likes. I'll give you guys 1 minute.
Because we're about to stop.
1 minute to get up to 50 likes. 50 thumbs up. We can get 6 more. I'll show you how to make.
You'll teach people
how to make a dragon with your hands.
With their hands.
It's really cool. You'll be like the belle of the ball. The dragon at the.
Who's not gonna thumbs up? London Matthews, because he already knows.
Well, he doesn't have to. He can give it he could share it. How about that? I still only see 44. I guess everyone here 45. It's
everyone
getting there.
Here probably already did, because we've.
I know everyone. These are the ones. I'll tell you what I gave you.
Announcement up super in advance today, so we've only had 30 to 40 some people watching simultaneously at any given time.
47. Holy crap, it's getting up there. Well, also, we didn't have a guest, and someone wrote earlier that we should invite some others, and they had a few people listed.
They had, what did they have? They had How It's Played was the one that they did separately after.
Oh, it's up to 49.
and they had one more that was on their list.
It's How It's Played. Yeah, I can get Dave. Dave from How It's Played's easy. I mean, is it How It's Played? Yeah.
Yeah, Dave is from How It's Played.
And then he's easy to get. I don't know what their day schedules are.
The tour guy was one of the authors.
Yeah.
Who won platinum like in the first.
And he won this year too. Right? He won, I think, silver this year.
He won silver this year.
Yeah, so... it's hard. Like, trust me, you would like platinum is near impossible. I mean, there's only a few of them.
Hey,
even gold. I know.
Oh, Derek from That's
Derek's here.
Still going.
What Dude, champs? We got Derek, we got Nonat, and we got the rules lawyer.
All of our previous.
All right, Derek. I'm going to show you guys how to make a dragon with your hands. Are you ready? Okay. So follow along.
I'm not gonna be able to see it until it.
You can't see it. So you take your hands, and now forgive me because I bite my nails. You put it up. All right, I'm showing everyone. And then you take the ring fingers and put them down, and these are going to become the eyes. And then you take, there you go. You take your pointing fingers and you wrap them around the eyes. So basically, it goes down, wrap, and then ta-da! You got the dragon. And then you see, hello. And then you can use the pinkies as the tail. So there you go. Now, if you got stubby little fingers like me, the dragon ends up looking really good. My friends who have very long fingers, it doesn't look quite as good when you do the dragon. But you two can now be the life of the party. So once again, just put your hands. It's only two things. You put these fingers down and these across. Now, this might hurt, and a lot of you will probably do it like this at first, where your like hands are like cockeyed, because it takes a while. It does hurt if you're not used to it, but you'll get used to it. Now, the reverse dragon is literally the exact same thing, except reversed. And so instead, your ring fingers become the eye.
On the time delay, and it's very difficult.
It's hard for you, but then, so it's the same thing. So the reverse dragon is, you do this way. And then you're like, now you got horns. And you're like, hello, I'm the reverse dragon. Ha ha ha. There you go. There you go. So everyone now knows how to make a dragon with their hands. Except Mark. So, yeah, if you got really tiny fingers, believe it or not, having stubby fingers is a little better. If you have long fingers, then your eyes stick out and it looks weird, because then your eyes like that. Your eyes like sticking out an inch. So, but there you go. If anyone knows how to do any other animals with their hands, let me know, because I've never seen anyone else do this.
Any address at rollforcombat.com, it might go to him, but Steven at rollforcombat.com is better.
Yeah, Steven at rollforcombat definitely
Send
works.
him your hand animal information.
Send me the hand animal, man.
He's looking for it. He'll credit you.
I was a finger acrobat in the circus. No. I was not in the circus, although I... had a friend. Do you have
a background with circus entertainment?
I do. I have a friend. He was a juggler, and he was in the very last. It was so sad. He got hired to be a clown in Barnum and Bailey, like just as that was their last tour, and then they stopped of all time. But he blogged the whole thing and showed, like, because they all travel on train. It looked like a blast, man. It looked like a lot of fun.
Do you have a background in circus performing? Does he have a background?
He did. It's a friend of mine. It was a friend. Okay. It was a friend of. It was actually his son. Sorry, her son. It's her son was into clowning and into juggling, like really into it. Like, what, as much as we're the Pathfinder, he was into juggling, and it was his dream to work for Barnum and Bailey. And then he did.
Oh, he achieved his dream.
He achieved his dream, and then they went out of business. And then he lasted just a few weeks, and then they were gone. So
it looks like Derek can make balloon animal.
I could do that too. My brother was big into balloon animals. He was big into magic. And we used to do that. That was a big thing. I don't like it because of the popping. I don't like loud sounds.
Is there a lot of overlap between magic and
yes,
like props and costume design stuff that your brother does?
Well, no.
Okay.
Not really.
Fair enough.
But he was into magic and balloon animals, and he would perform at kids' birthday parties when he got older for fun. It was just, I think that was an 80s thing. It was very popular. Balloon animals, it's like one of those things you don't think about any time of your life, but if you're a kid, those balloon, they do those really big balloon animals at Gen Con. Don't forget. Remember, Mark? You know,
Yeah.
they do those gigantic balloon animals like the size of a building, of like dragons and stuff. So there are people who do this for a living.
Some people like balloon animals.
New
That's
ancestry.
okay.
New ancestry.
My
That actually would be a good monster. That would be a
balloon
really
animal.
good
My
balloon
father
animal.
hated balloons, so if he saw one around, he would just pop it with a pin.
There you go. You can't even move your fingers towards each other for the crossover. I know it does hurt the first few times you do the dragon, and people do it and they're like, "Ow!" I'm like, I know, because your fingers have to really bend. So, but you'll get used to it. Trust me. Because and then if you get really good, you go like this, oh, and then you have you're like, hey, how did you do that? You're like, oh, there you go. That is cool when you do the clap.
Right.
Oh, night's the last call. That's how I learned. A friend as teenagers did birthday parties. He did animals and general nonsense. He's more of a magic tricks guy. Bigfoot hunting. I've never done Bigfoot hunting. I've done skeet shooting. I have done that. I am a master marksman. That's another thing.
There we go.
Used to be. I'm not into guns as much now, but I used to really shoot a lot.
Plus, you have
nothing live,
belts,
nothing
right?
live, just
so
target shooting.
You're like the monk archetype that also has guns.
I was big into target shooting. Very big into accuracy, skeet shooting, target shooting. Never anything live, ever. But always, I really loved it. I still do, still enjoy it. I just don't get I live in New York, and there's not a lot of that in this area. So, oh well.
Fair enough. So,
all right, let's go. Otherwise, we're going to
tell you Steven's other backgrounds on the next
exciting
episode of Roll for Combat Live.
I got backgrounds in it. I didn't say I'm like an expert in some of these things. I just did them. Try something. This is an excuse. Try things, man. Get out. Live your life.
I think that what I've learned is that, Steven, you're not a unique background. You're a class, and the class feature is that you just keep getting a background every time.
I try to do something
every
new.
level, you get a different background.
You tried, man. It's like, but like, why not? Like, try something really weird, like once or twice, just, and if you do it even once, that's 100% more than zero. So at least you said you did it.
It's true. And it's infinitely more in a multiplicative sense.
In fact, I'll leave you a cliffhanger. Next week, I will tell you about my drag racing. It like those cars where you go like
secret drag racing.
I drag raced actually, and John Stats did it with me. I'll tell you all about that.
You already told people something about it this week.
I told you a little bit about it, so it wasn't even just me. And John had very different reactions to going from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. Let me tell you, it was 0 to 100. It was like 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. It was quite the rush. So I'll tell you that. And black belt me. Black belt? What's David Green about black belts? I have 3 black belts. I'll tell you about that too some other time. All right. I'll see you guys next time.
Bye, everybody.